Naruto had recently survived the most significant battle of his life. A confrontation with his supposed best friend, Sasuke Uchiha. The duo had clashed in the Valley of the End with such fierce resolve and a singular goal of winning that it was truly a miracle that they had not killed each other. Even Kakashi, who arrived after the conflict had ended, was stunned by the outcome. He could not locate Sasuke, but he found an unconscious Naruto lying there, bleeding from a severe chest wound. At first, Kakashi was unable to comprehend the situation. Why would Sasuke employ that particular jutsu in an attempt to kill Naruto? Despite all they had experienced together, the highs, the lows, and even their disagreements, Kakashi had believed without a doubt that the two were inseparable, like brothers. However, as the copy ninja carried Naruto's bloodied form, the reality told him otherwise. Kakashi had also been dispatched to retrieve Sasuke but had been too late to do so. If he knew one thing for certain, it was that the council would somehow find a way to punish Naruto for everything that had transpired. As the silver-haired man finally reached the gates of Konoha, he hurried to the hospital to ensure Naruto received immediate medical attention. To no one's surprise, most of the retrieval team had also been taken to the hospital. Shikamaru was sitting on a chair outside the emergency room when Kakashi arrived. The sight of the blood trail caused his heart to sink, thinking about how he had nearly gotten his entire team killed. Kakashi brought Naruto into the emergency room and then quickly went to inform Tsunade. He dreaded what her reaction would be to all of this. The mission had failed, Sasuke was now a traitor, and everyone on the team except for Shikamaru was almost dead. She was undoubtedly going to be furious about the situation. While Kakashi was on his way to see Lady Hokage, Naruto was undergoing surgery. In his mind, he replayed the events over and over again. Sasuke had tried to kill him on more than one occasion, and had come extremely close a few times. The open wound, a hole in his chest almost the size of a fist, clearly indicated Sasuke's true intentions. Naruto could not believe how far his teammate had fallen in his relentless pursuit of power and revenge. It was sickening to the blonde that Sasuke had been praised so highly only for him to throw it back in everyone's faces. How could he do this to a village that had given him so much? He simply tossed it all away for some misguided revenge plot? In Naruto's opinion, that was an incredibly foolish mindset to abandon everything for the sake of vengeance. "Hey, kid," that deep voice resonated in his ears once again, just as before. This time, though, it sounded a bit less sinister, almost calming. "Open your eyes, kid." Naruto obeyed and slowly opened his eyes with some effort. When he fully opened them and his vision focused, he found himself in a sewer-like place with a massive gate in front of him. However, it was neither the surroundings nor the gate that made the blonde's eyes widen. No, it was the creature inside the gate. A huge, red fox. The nine-tailed fox. Naruto immediately jumped to his feet, only to realize that the floor was mostly water. He looked at the fox with fear on his face, but that feeling subsided when he noticed the expression in the fox's eyes. It was not the look of a demon that craves death and destruction, but simply of a being who appeared concerned for someone. "You can relax, kid," the fox began in a normal, level tone. "You know something, kid, if I hadn't intervened right then and there, you would have died. You understand that, right?" Naruto felt his body relax upon hearing the fox's words. It was true. If it hadn't stepped in, he would be dead from that chidori through his chest. "So," Naruto started, with a confused look, "why did you save me then?" The fox still had a saddened expression on its face as it considered the answer for a moment. It was true that if Naruto died, it would die as well, but for the fox, there was more to it than that. A deeper connection of some sort that it had never felt with any of its previous vessels. A shared sorrow between them, but also a small glimmer of hope. It connected the two in a way that even the fox did not comprehend. With a sigh, the fox lowered its head and looked away from Naruto. The blonde didn't understand why, but he could feel the immense sadness coming from the fox spirit. "Well, whatever the reason," Naruto began, causing the fox to wince, thinking its jailer would act like all the others. "Thank you." The nine-tailed fox's eyes quickly opened, and it turned back to Naruto, surprised that the boy had thanked it. Before it could say anything, Naruto felt himself waking up from his subconscious. He faded away from the fox and left it to wonder what kind of vessel Naruto truly was and how different he was from the rest. Hospital room, 1 week after the mission. Naruto felt himself stirring from his slumber and slowly opened his eyes. He was immediately met with the sunlight pouring into his room and groaned. He covered his eyes with his right hand and noticed how heavily taped his arm was. The medical tape extended all the way from his palm and wrist to his elbow. He sat up from his bed and winced slightly at his still banged-up body. Upon closer inspection, Naruto could see that most of his body was bandaged from the chidori and the cuts and scratches he sustained during his fight with Sasuke. Naruto was truly grateful for the fox's healing abilities. If it weren't for that, Naruto probably wouldn't have made it even halfway to Konoha. Aside from those injuries and the bandages from using a very powerful and dangerous Raise-Non, Naruto was actually fine. He looked around the room for any sign of a doctor or any of his friends. To his surprise, no one was there to watch over him. This feeling reminded him of his childhood whenever he was sent to the hospital by an umbu. Whenever he would wake up, there was no one there to check on him or ask if he was okay. The present moment felt vaguely similar to that time. Naruto decided to get up from the bed and move around a bit to loosen his stiff muscles. Who knows how long he had been out. He moved his arms and legs a bit to get some feeling back into them before going to the window to look at the village. It was another bright and sunny day in Konoha. People were going about their daily lives as if nothing bad had happened. Naruto was at least happy to see that people weren't talking about their precious Sasuke being a traitor. However, given Naruto's understanding of how the villagers tend to act, the blame was likely going to be placed on him somehow. As Naruto leaned against the windowsill, he failed to hear the door open and a masked umbu woman with purple hair tied up at the moment enter. She saw that Naruto was now awake and visibly tensed up. She knew what her job was and dreaded every single part of it. Taking a deep breath, the umbu spoke. Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto turned to see her standing in the doorway and jumped a bit at her sudden appearance in his room. As soon as you are able, your presence is required in the council meeting. Before Naruto could even say okay, the umbu was gone in a shunshin. That was a clear red flag. Naruto decided to shrug it off and prepare himself to be scolded by this council yet again. Surprisingly, he didn't hate the council, he just hated that they blamed him for so many things in the village. A few of them had even taken part in a previously annual fox hunt years ago when Naruto was kicked out of the orphanage. Those were dark days that Naruto was glad were long behind him. It took a while, but Naruto was finally able to get out of the hospital and into some of his comfortable clothes. His jacket that he wore when he arrived was now shredded, so he just tied it around his waist while wearing his normal clothes and his headband around his neck to conceal some of his bandages. As Naruto left the hospital and breathed in the fresh air, he couldn't shake the feeling that more than a few eyes were on him, which wasn't uncommon for the blonde, but he hadn't felt like people were staring at him with such hate for a while now. As he walked down to Hokage Tower, he felt as if he was a child again, with the way he saw people looking at him. Deciding to ignore it, Naruto just continued on to get this over with and get some ramen later. He would have to talk to his friends and sensei later unless he ran into them at some point. I can't believe that Demon Brat let Sasuke leave, one person whispered to another as Naruto passed them. I know. If anything, I really wish the Uchiha could have killed that monster and gotten rid of it for all of us, another whispered. When I heard that he was still somehow alive and lost the Uchiha, I just wanted to suffocate the little demon for it, another whisper. Well, he is hurt now. So why don't we just finish him off? Because that old hag of a Hokage would have us executed. Humph. Seeing that demon walking around, knowing that he's the reason Sasuke is lost to us makes me so angry. The whispers were starting to get a little louder now, loud enough for Naruto to hear them clearly. He should die. It's all his fault. The demon should just disappear. Something like him shouldn't exist in our village. Maybe we should do another fox hunt this year. Naruto's happy mood shifted to one of deep sadness when he heard the various comments he hadn't heard in nearly a year. He had long since thought that maybe the villagers were starting to see him as a ninja and respect him in the slightest, but with this one event, that hope was gone. Naruto didn't want to hear any more and just ran off to get this meeting over with and go home to rest. Council meeting. Tsunade had just been informed about Naruto's recovery and his imminent arrival at the meeting. Her eyes widened, and she hated what she had no choice but to do now. If she knew Naruto, she knew that he would be devastated by what was about to happen to him. She looked around at the Shinobi Council and saw a mix of anger and sadness. It was understandable since most of their children were good friends with the Jinchuriki. Seeing the look on the boy's face when he was told this would haunt them for a long time. She then looked at the civilian council and was appalled by their smirks and satisfied glares. It sickened Tsunade that these people were the main reason that Naruto's life was such hell when he was only a frightened child. If Tsunade had her way, many of those council members would suffer by her hands. Her angry thoughts were shattered, however, when Naruto walked through the door. She looked at the boy and paled at his entry. That was another red flag for Naruto. Tsunade never paled at anything unless the news was absolutely horrible. Naruto stood in front of the council and waited to hear what they planned on doing about the failed Uchiha recovery mission. Genin Naruto Uzumaki, Tsunade started after a few minutes of waiting. Naruto said nothing and just looked at her with his bright blue eyes. I'm so sorry, Naruto, she thought before continuing. Because of your failure to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha, and nearly getting your team killed, you are hereby she paused for a few seconds before taking a deep breath and continuing. Banished from Konoha. Naruto's eyes widened completely, and his jaw dropped to the floor. He could not form any words to describe how he felt about this. Anger? Betrayal? Hatred? Sadness? Denial? He didn't know. All he knew was that Tsunade hated having to say those terrible words and the Shinobi Council hated hearing them. He turned to the civilian council and saw their satisfied looks and disgusted glares as he processed the entire situation. You have until 10 a.m. tomorrow to pack your things and leave the village, or you will be met with force, Tsunade said as she looked away from his sad eyes. Those eyes would now haunt her dreams for the rest of her life. Naruto still couldn't say anything. He just couldn't. There were still no words to describe this feeling. The emptiness he had long thought was gone was now blank once again. Holding back tears, Naruto slowly turned and walked back toward the door and left the room. Tsunade wanted to go and comfort him, but she was stopped by one of the elders with bandages around his face. She could only watch as Naruto's world came crashing down around him for the sake of one traitorous brat. As Naruto walked with the same wide-eyed expression back to his rat hole of a home, his mind still couldn't process any of it. What just happened, he thought to himself. First the villagers were back to talking down on him, now he was banished because he failed to bring back a traitor? He had been loyal to this village his entire life. He stayed here with the hope of one day becoming Hokage and earning everyone's respect. No matter how hard the beatings, the near-deaths, the tortures he endured, or any other harsh treatment he received from these people, he was always loyal. Then one failed mission to bring back this village's precious loyal Uchiha, and he was banished? That made absolutely no sense to him. As he walked on with his stiff and still shocked expression, he could still hear the villagers insulting him. Among the various insults and hurtful remarks directed at him, one word kept coming up: demon. That word had been spoken to him for as long as he could remember. That word carried too much weight in how much it hurt him. To be called a demon when he had done nothing to truly harm anyone was the worst part of it all. As he finally made it to his home, he went up to his room and closed the door. After he did that, he slumped to the floor, and the tears he had held in were released along with a scream. Why? Why did this happen to me? He thought to himself as he continued to sob into his hands. Why? 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 Because of me. That deep voice was back and quickly got Naruto's attention as he realized he was back in that sewer again. He looked up at the fox and saw that it had a saddened expression on its face. I'm so sorry, Naruto. If it wasn't for me, this village wouldn't have treated you like this. Its voice was getting lighter and a little higher now. If only it was someone else. If only it didn't have to be you, then you could have lived a normal life. Its voice started sounding higher-pitched, almost feminine. It's all my fault and you're suffering because of it. Before it no, she could continue, Naruto stopped her. You're a girl? She stopped when she realized her actual voice had come out. With a sigh, she nodded at him. Yes, I am, Naruto. I have been for my entire life. She almost looked down in shame. That's not what's important right now. What matters is that I am sorry for all the terrible things I have caused to happen to you because of me being confined inside of you. It is entirely my fault that they are forcing you to leave your home. Naruto stopped his crying at the phrase your home. He considered it for a moment. You know something. I used to peek into the windows of other people's houses when I was a little kid. She looked back at him. I remember that. I always saw how the parents would treat their children with care and affection. He went on. I wanted that for myself. I wanted to feel that warmth and love from others. I was a 5-year-old living in the streets with people from this village looking down on me and beating me up just for existing. He took a few deep breaths before continuing. I thought at the time that everyone in the world was like that, but then the first time I ever truly left the village and went to Wave, I realized how wrong I was. Those people, Tajuna, Inari, his mother, they all treated me with kindness even before I helped save them from Gato. He looked back up at her, and she was astonished by the new look of determination in his eyes. I think I finally understand it now. Understand what, Naruto? He got to his feet and wiped away his tears before looking back up at her. That a place where everyone constantly harms you is no home whatsoever. The fox let out a small chuckle before speaking to him again. So what are you going to do, kid? Naruto smiled up at her and replied. I'm going to leave this village forever, become stronger than anyone, and forge my own destiny far away from this hellhole. She smiled back at him and rose to her haunches. Naruto got a complete view of her as she stood there. Then to make up for the suffering I have caused you throughout your life, I'll do everything I can to help you, Naruto. He smiled up at her. Thanks. I still don't know what to call you, though. She smiled at him again and lowered her head. For now, you can call me Kyuubi. With that, Naruto beamed at Kyuubi before he was returned to his room. His resolve had been strengthened, and he stood up. Looking around his awful room, Naruto decided it was the right time. He grabbed a backpack and began to fill it with clothes and gear for himself before he glanced out the window. To his surprise, it was now nighttime and a full moon was out. He also saw lanterns and heard people cheering about something. Upon a closer look, he could tell that the news of his banishment must have gotten out and the villagers were celebrating. That was the final straw. It was at that moment that Naruto knew without a doubt that this place was never his home. Now filled with disgust, Naruto decided to pull one last prank on this village for all the pain and suffering they had put him through. It took some time and a lot of stealthy movement, but Naruto was finally able to set up the explosive tags around his home and the fireworks around the festival. Before he lit them, he had a few tasks he needed to complete. The first was returning the headband that Irika had given him. Since he was banished now, he would have no further use for it. He left it at the academy with a note placed on Irika's desk. The last thing he wanted was to face his former teacher about the entire situation. Next was the necklace Tsunade had given him. His ambition of becoming Hokage was now gone, so he might as well return this to her desk as well. To his shock, she was not in her office, nor was anyone else. So he left it along with a note, too. The last thing was seeing his friends one final time, but that was a bad idea. He searched for them only to find that a few were actually at the festival. Sakura, Ino, Koji, Shikamaru, Kiba, Shino, Ten, and even Niji and Lee were there. They seemed to be enjoying themselves at the Fox Festival, completely unaware that the very boy they were celebrating was watching them. That was it. There was no longer any other reason to remain in this place. Naruto clenched his teeth and activated both the tags and the fireworks and watched as everyone panicked. It was gratifying to see the angry and confused expressions on the people one last time. With that, Naruto exited the area and headed to the gate. He had no clue where he was going or what he was going to do, but one thing was for sure, he would never come back to this village. He would keep his promise to become stronger than anyone, and with Kyubai's help, he could live a life of freedom and happiness. With that thought in his mind, Naruto left the village to make a name for himself and to forge his own destiny. It had been 3.5 years since Naruto left the village, and he had grown considerably more powerful than before. He had learned that his elemental affinities were wind and water during that time, thanks to Kyuubi, and had even learned to master both of them. He was now very skilled in both and could even combine the two for more potent ice techniques. And since he did have a tailed beast inside of him with its own chakra, Naruto was even able to learn the other elements. He began to enjoy using fire, was slowly mastering earth, and was getting the hang of using lightning. He was by no means a master in ninjutsu yet, but he was getting closer with each day that passed. Genjutsu was something he was truly trying to avoid since he was not good at it, but Kyuubi convinced him after saying that some of the best ninja know at least how to cast and fight off Genjutsu. She was a very persuasive and sometimes demanding teacher for the blonde, yet she was an excellent teacher. All those decades and maybe even centuries of experience paid off for Naruto as she taught him. He could now perform a few genjutsu if necessary to trick others, and, surprisingly, he was quite good at it. Taijutsu was his favorite part of training. That was when he got to see Kyuubi's human form and spar with her. She would take the form of a fairly tall, slender woman who was both curvaceous and muscular at the same time. Her skin was a smooth tan color, while she had piercing red eyes, short crimson hair that was straight, with her fox ears sticking out, and her 9 tails just above her firm bottom. She would usually wear a kimono that was quite loose to allow for mobility. The kimono was a deep red color that had an orange fox pattern on the back of it. It was simple and gave her plenty of room to move around in. The reason why Naruto liked this part of the training was because he got to see her true form and fight her with multiple different styles. She knew many different styles and would spend at least a week training him with one style at a time. It was extremely helpful that they both knew the shadow clone technique for when Naruto really wanted to learn more styles. During Naruto's travels, he decided to head west. It was during those journeys that he found himself caught in a continuing war between Kyuzagakur and Omegakur. It was there that he had his first kill, an AIM ninja who was attacking an innocent villager in Kusa. Naruto paused before taking him down with a kunai through his head. When he saved that little girl and saw many ninja on both sides witness it, he knew that he was now a part of this war. It was during his time in Kusa that he learned Kenjutsu from a ninja who was also a former samurai. With his help and Kyuubi's, Naruto was easily able to master Kenjutsu and help Kusa win the war with AIM in just a year. He wields a blade that he found during a raid in Omegakur. The blade is a blood-red katana with a black handle and guard. That wasn't the strange thing. The strange thing about it was the fact that there was an eye in the handle. Not just a normal eye, but a blood-red, demonic eye. Kyuubi told him that this sword was indeed one of the rarest blades in the world, a demon blade. Because of her own demonic chakra, Naruto was able to wield it without a problem. He named it Akai Akuma. After he helped end the war and was a hero to the people of Kusa, he left to continue his journey for true strength. Not wanting everyone to know that it was Naruto Uzumaki who had helped end the war and became so powerful in such a short time, Naruto insisted that he be referred to by a different name, and so he became the White Fox. The name was mainly because of the mask he chose to wear when in AIM, a white fox mask with piercing, lifeless white eyes. The bingo book marked him down as an A-ranked ninja. That was a while ago, and now Naruto was moving through a forest area. He was wearing a dark orange long-sleeved shirt with a white undershirt, and black cargo pants along with black ninja sandals. He had enjoyed taking these long walks in the forest, and since he really didn't have a place to stay, he made camp out here. He set up his tent and cooked up some rabbits he had caught a while ago before lying down and watching the night sky. It was a clear, starry night tonight, and it was calm times like these that really made Naruto wonder just how different his life would have been if he had left the village a long time ago. He's 16 now and at least a very high-level jounin, but he couldn't help but wonder what his progress as a ninja would be if he were still in Konoha. He sighed before deciding to call it a night for now. As he slept, his mind drifted, and he was having his recurring nightmare again. The one about his days back in Konoha as a child and how the people would mistreat him. Every beating, every bit of abuse, every break-in, every assault, every torture played out in a perfect image in the teenager's mind. Surprisingly, though, Naruto had grown used to the nightmares now. Kuwabai would always talk to him to make him feel better and calm his thoughts. She was very caring toward him, a quality Naruto never would have thought the most powerful and feared demon would possess. The next morning, Naruto woke up when he heard some commotion not too far away from him. He decided to check it out after quickly getting dressed as he heard the screams of a few girls. Leaving quickly, Naruto saw around 5 girls his age and a child around 8 or 9 running away from several male bandits. The bandits had lust-filled eyes directed toward the 5, and Naruto could at least understand why. The 5 girls were beautiful indeed, but now was not the time to stare. The blonde donned his mask and leapt into action just as one of the bandits grabbed one of the girls. The girl was fairly tall with tan skin and short orange hair. She wore a tattered brown shirt and black shorts and had no shoes on. Her green eyes showed fear as she desperately tried to break free from the man's grip only for him to laugh and slap her hard. Naruto did not hesitate. He dropped down right next to the man, and before either could react, Naruto had already removed his head from his shoulders. The girl was shocked by this but didn't question why this masked man was saving her. The other 4 girls and the child were surrounded by the rest of the bandits, about 9 of them. They were all visibly terrified, with the little girl clinging desperately to one of the girls. "Heh, looks like our little hunt ends here, fellas," one of the bandits said. "So, boss, we still gonna," he rubbed his crotch with his left hand toward the girls, "have some fun before we take them back to town." A big, burly, bald man wearing a loose outfit walked over and stopped in front of the girls. He grinned until he noticed something. "Wait a minute, weren't there 6 of them? I only count 5. Another bandit smirked and answered. "One of our guys caught her and is probably having fun with her right now." The other girls visibly paled upon hearing their friend's fate. It was an awful thing that these bandits were doing, and all they could do was stay close to one another and pray that someone would save them. Almost as if that prayer was answered, before any of the bandits could lay a finger on them, a body fell to the ground next to them. They all easily recognized the body of their comrade and gasped as they saw his head roll over to them. "Who the hell dares to step up to us?" The boss of the group yelled out to the forest, expecting someone to answer. The other men got ready for an attack and spread out a bit. 9 guys, all bandits, no skills at all, Naruto thought to himself as he stood near a bush, watching them all. He smirked behind his mask as the girl was behind him. "This'll be too easy. What do you dash?" The girl was cut off when she saw the masked man vanish out of thin air. She gasped in shock before looking to the other girls and bandits. The bandits were starting to get a little nervous. It was a bright day outside where literally anybody could be seen from both above and all around. Yet they couldn't find whoever it was that was here. Naruto liked this. He enjoyed being stealthy on bandits and low-level ninja. The panic and the uneasiness they displayed always made him smile on the inside. He knew it was a little bit sadistic to play with your prey before ending it, but maybe that was Kuwabai's influence. Naruto decided to pick one off in a loud way to stir up some confusion. He silently went by trees until he was close to one of the bandits. He grabbed the man by the back of his neck and pulled hard. The man let out a high-pitched scream and was pulled into the bushes. The other bandits heard this and saw that the bush now had blood all over it. The bandits were more than disturbed at seeing this but were still a little unfazed. Naruto decided to step it up a notch. He went up a tree and hid for a few seconds before catching 3 of them, all with swords of their own. The blonde saw their very poor form and loose grips and shook his head. Deciding to let these men see a real swordsman before they die, Naruto dropped down in the center of them and landed in a crouching position. The 3 were shocked at first, but that changed when they saw this masked man reach for and unsheath his own blade on his back. The 3 yelled out as they rushed the man, but they were easily taken out in a flash. Naruto leapt into the air into the trees before the last 5 showed up. They saw their comrades cut down and started to panic. Naruto had to suppress a chuckle at the last 5 bandits. He decided that now was the best time to really mess with them. He dropped down in front of the 5, causing them all to jump in both shock and then fear. The boss of the group looked at the masked man, or more specifically, his mask, and went wide-eyed. He slowly backed away as he realized just who this person was. "B-boss," one of the bandits said as he started to tremble at the gaze the masked man was giving them. "What do we do?" Their boss started to stutter. "The WWW White FF Fox." "Oh." Naruto started as he placed his blade on his shoulder and tilted his head slightly. "So you've heard of me? Good. Then maybe you can tell me just what you worthless sacks of garbage were going to do to those girls." One of the bandits didn't know what to do and foolishly charged in out of panic. Naruto dodged his sword slash and swiftly cut the man in half from the waist. The last 4 and the girls saw this, and their jaws dropped. "I guess I wasn't clear enough." Naruto started as he wiped his blade on the man's shirt. "So I'll ask nicely one last time. What were you going to do to them?" The boss decided that this job was not worth dying to the infamous White Fox. This was supposed to be a low-level job. Nobody, especially someone from the bingo book, was supposed to stop them. Look, we were just hired to grab the girls and take them back to their base, okay, the boss said quickly. Whose base? Just some human traffickers and prostitution rings, the boss said quickly. We would just get a cut of the profits when we brought them back. Where? Just some village in the Earth country. That's all we know. So you'll let us go, right? The boss asked with a small smirk. He thought that if he gave the White Fox some information that he and what was left of his men would be allowed to live. Unfortunately for him, if this were the Naruto from before the war in Kusa, then he might have been right. When did I ever say that? The White Fox asked them. They gasped in horror at this and tried to make a break for it. They didn't get far before they started to sink into the earth. Naruto walked over to their sinking forms and crouched down to them as they begged and pleaded with him. You guys were going to rape and take advantage of them. I hate people who prey on the weak, but I absolutely loathe rapists. You all have this coming. And just like that, the men were gone, and the forest was quiet once more. Naruto sighed as he had what he needed. He was about to head back to his belongings and then go to Earth Country, but he was stopped by the girls. One was a long-haired blonde with dark eyes and light skin. Another was also a blonde but with short hair and yellow eyes, along with her fair skin. The third had dark skin, black hair to her shoulders, and brown eyes. The fourth had blue hair only to the top of her head, fair skin, and blue eyes like her hair. The last was the little girl. She had pure white hair and eyes and had pale skin. Naruto turned to them and saw that they were all standing there, staring at him in awe. So you're the White Fox? The blue-haired girl started in awe. You're just as amazing as the rumors in AIM made you out to be. Naruto smiled behind his mask and folded his arms across his chest. Thanks. It's always nice to meet some fans. And who exactly are you all, anyway? I'm Akane. The blue-haired girl spoke. My name's Hikari. The black-haired one answered. Hikaru, the orange-haired girl. I'm Toyoko, the long-haired blonde began, then pointed to the other blonde hiding behind her. And this is Ayako. And this little girl right here is Setsu. Hikaru motioned to the little girl. Setsu looked up at Naruto with wonder and awe in her eyes. She was truly mesmerized by how he saved them and what he was about to do. Well, it's nice to meet you girls. Naruto started with a nod to them. I would stay, but I have a base to destroy and some others to hopefully help. Before Naruto even took 2 steps, he was already stopped. A hand on his shirt was what stopped him, and he turned to see that it was actually Setsu that had him. Naruto looked down at her and saw that she now had a questioning look on her face. You have something inside you, don't you? She asked him. Naruto gasped under his mask as he looked into her eyes. I can sense it. Something dark and powerful inside you. She let him go and reached for the seal on his stomach. Just what exactly is it, though, I wonder? Before she could make contact, Naruto grabbed her wrist to stop her. Listen, Setsu, she looked up at him. I don't know how those eyes of yours work, but you should be careful when looking into a person. Setsu went a little wide-eyed when she could no longer look within this person. She looked into his eyes and nodded slowly. So why exactly is the infamous White Fox wandering around in a forest? Hikari asked him as she folded her arms just below her impressive bust. I was just minding my own business when I heard all of this. It was a good warm-up, but now I'm ready for an actual workout. Naruto turned around to leave before he was stopped again. We can show you where the village is, Hikaru said to him. Naruto turned back to them and tilted his head. We'll show you where, you just have to promise us that you'll leave the leader for all of us. Naruto didn't get that part but nodded anyway. With that, the group led Naruto through Earth Country to a small village that made Naruto growl a bit under his mask. In the village, there were men all around with women doing very degrading things for their own amusement. The men would force them to dance in front of them with next to nothing on, force them into a pile of men for an obvious reason, and in some sicker cases, beat them with whips. Which one is the leader? He asked the girls, who could feel the intense ki seeping out of him. That man right there, Toyoko said as she pointed down to a nin of some kind. That would make this a lot easier for Naruto to determine who not to kill yet since the leader was the only ninja down there. Naruto stood up and cracked his neck before looking to the girls. Stay here, and don't move. I'll end this quickly. And before they could say anything, he was gone in a shunshin. They looked down and waited for a while to wonder just what the White Fox had in store for the bandits. After a few minutes of waiting, they started to hear screaming as bandits started to be taken down by lightning strikes and fierce winds. They watched as the bandits tried and failed to run away from everything that was happening around them. They were left in a daze of disorientation and confusion as they were all being torn apart by something too fast for them to see. The girls in the village were terrified and some were even sickened by what they were seeing. A blur was destroying the bandits that had held them captive for so long and was doing so in very bloody ways. They watched from inside some of the buildings and even a few of the shacks and cages they were kept in as the massacre continued. All they could see was a white blur of some kind. The only one not touched was the ninja who was trying to flee, only to be stopped with a kunai through his leg. He fell to the ground in pain as the sound of his men's screams slowly started to fade away into silence. He pulled out the kunai and tried to patch himself up, only to be stopped once again from doing anything by a voice. I really should just kill you now. The man looked up only to gasp in horror at who he was seeing. Standing right in front of him was the White Fox, a ninja who was said to have killed hundreds of AIM ninja in the War of Kusa and AIM. The same ninja was staring down at him with not a single scratch or speck of blood on his clothes. Now that Naruto was here in front of the ninja, he saw that he was in a sound uniform. This made his blood boil at seeing the same symbol that brought the traitorous Sasuke over to them and caused his banishment. Naruto had to take a few very deep breaths so he wouldn't just take out a Kayakuma and send this ninja to hell. If it were up to me, I would kill you now and be done with it. Naruto started. But that's not for me to decide now, is it? With that, Naruto turned away from the sound ninja, and that was when Setsu and the others came toward him. The ninja had no time to prepare for his death as he was too terrified to really do or say anything. Setsu stood in front of him and knelt closer to his face. The ninja tried to swing at her with a kunai in hand, but was stopped by Naruto grabbing his arm and snapping it like a twig. Setsu, no longer distracted, gazed into the man's eyes, and her white eyes turned into a deep black color with white pupils. The ninja started to convulse violently, and his eyes rolled completely behind his head. In a matter of seconds, he started to foam at the mouth and then stopped moving at all. Naruto was amazed by whatever Setsu did as her eyes changed back to white. He would have to ask her about it later, though, as now a few eyes were steadily focused on him. Naruto looked around for a brief moment and noticed that every girl was staring at him in both awe and gratitude. The ones in cages had been freed, and the ones who were hurt were now being treated as best as they could. Naruto, thinking that his job here was done, decided to take his leave, but before he could, he was stopped by more than a few girls who wanted to thank him. He was just a bit uncomfortable at first since he really had no idea how to talk to girls like this, so he just decided to wing it and just be himself. Hours later, night time. It took some time, but with a few very healthy girls and the help of the White Fox's many clones, the dead bodies had been moved away to be burned. Naruto rather enjoyed helping this village and its residents clean the place up of all the bloody bodies. It was nice to get to know some of the girls that would casually speak to him like everything was normal. Some of the repeated questions were asked, of course, like where he was from, did he really kill that many AIM ninja, and what was his real name. Naruto would answer the first two but would always hesitate when it came to the last one. He debated in his head for all those hours until Kyuubi decided to speak for the first time today. You should at least take the mask off, she said to him in a calm tone. You really think so, Kyuubi? Naruto asked her, still a little hesitant about it all. Look, they're heavily in your debt for saving them from a life that would only end in either death or a lust-filled haze they would never escape. Kyuubi continued. They won't care who you really are. They would just love to see the face of the one who saved them all and not a mask and title. Naruto sighed as her words made sense to him. You're right, Kyuubi. Thanks. Kyuubi chuckled a bit before fading from his thoughts to rest again. When she did, Naruto let out a sigh and decided to take off his mask. Before he did, Hikaru found him. Hey there, White Fox, she started in a friendly tone. Look, I don't know if you'll be staying here for a little festival we're having a little later, but you know, it would be nice if you at least stayed for it. Naruto put his finger to his masked chin in a thinking pose. Well, I was planning on just wandering around until I found something to do, so sure. I can stay for a bit. Hikaru smiled and nodded to him. Then it's good to have you here, White Fox. No, he said to her, confusing the girl for a bit. That was when he reached for his mask and removed it, revealing himself to her. Hikaru was stunned by how he looked. The spiky blonde hair, the sky-blue eyes, and the whiskers adorning his face. He smiled at her, causing the orange-haired girl to blush. Call me Naruto. Several years later, a child was wandering around in town by himself. It didn't bother him in the slightest, though. He walked along a street as his short blonde hair with red tips at the end flowed with the wind. His light red eyes with slitted blue pupils, fairly light skin, and 2 whisker marks on each side of his face were an all too familiar sight to the people in the fairly small village. He wore black shorts and a dark orange jacket that was open, revealing a white undershirt. The boy had a big toothed smile on his face as he approached a stand on the side of the street he was walking on. He was met by a teenage girl with pale skin and white eyes and hair that reached her mid-back. She turned to the boy and smiled at him as he sat on a stool in front of her stand. Hey there, Boruto-kun. The girl said to the boy now known as Boruto. How have you been? Boruto gave her a little chuckle before answering her. I've been doing just fine, Setsuobakan. I just came over to get a new book for Akira. She blows through these things so easily. It's hard to believe she's only 5 sometimes. Setsu chuckled under her breath as she went looking through her assortment of books. She had loaned Boruto a few of her books in the past for him to return within a week, but when it came to Akira, that girl would usually finish them within a day. It made her laugh but also ponder just how many of these books that little girl had read by now. Setsu decided to let it go for now and handed Boruto a book on the history of Tsunagakure. Maybe that would keep her busy for more than one day. Boruto thanked one of his many aunts and left the bookstand. He went past many of the familiar faces as he was leaving the village area and into the forest. Ever since he was born, he's always had an attraction to the forest where he and his family lived. His mother may not be as enamored with the forest as both Boruto and Akira were, but she enjoyed watching the two play with their father all the time in the trees. Boruto had always felt at some kind of peace when it came to the treetops that led to and even surrounded his home. It was something that he really couldn't explain, but it just felt right to him. Nature, the animals, the peace it brought about, he just loved it. The same with Akira. As Boruto was moving through the branches on his usual route home, he heard the voice of someone right above him and knew exactly who it was. Onii-chan. A little girl shouted out as she landed on her brother's back to surprise him. The girl was about half his size with burnt red hair and bright blue eyes. Her skin was a lightly tanned color, and she had one whisker mark on each side of her cheeks. She wore a bright red shirt that came all the way to her ankles, covering her plain shorts, and had on plain sandals. Boruto easily caught his footing and held onto her with ease as he continued on. "Hey there, Akira-chan," Boruto said to her as he continued on. He handed her the book as he was passing by more trees at a fairly decent pace. "Look what I got you from Setsu Obakan." Akira's face lit up as she saw a new book for her to read. She grabbed it and thanked her brother as he continued on home with her in tow. It took a few minutes, but they finally reached their home. It was a regular-sized house fit for a group of people. It was a white house with a red roof and plants around and below the windows. There was also a small garden on the side of the structure that had some pretty strange fruits and vegetables growing from them. Not too far away from the garden and the forest was a visible river of clear water. In the backyard, there was a clear field that ran for acres on end that sported a few craters courtesy of their mother and father's sparring sessions. Speaking of those two, both Naruto and the two's mother were sitting on a porch near the garden and looking out onto the calm waters. For many years, a tranquil existence had altered Naruto. His spiky blonde hair now extended a bit past the nape of his neck and a white streak adorned the right side of his head. He had 3 imperceptible seal contracts tattooed on different parts of his body, was taller by about a foot, and a tattoo of a red fox stretched from the left side of his neck to his left shoulder. He was dressed in a black, long-sleeved sweater with orange cargo pants. The mother of his children was none other than the Kyuubi herself. After a year of shared training following the rescue of Hikaru and the others, Kyuubi began to reveal her feelings for the blonde. To her astonishment, he reciprocated her feelings and confessed his own affection for her. Once they had admitted their mutual care, Kyuubi asked Naruto to use her true name, Kurama. Naruto even loosened most of the seal, allowing her to permanently assume a physical human form and live with him. She looked much the same as before, except for a tattoo of a yellow fox on the right side of her neck that reached her right shoulder, and her crimson hair was now longer. She also kept her tails hidden unless she was in battle. She wore a simple red dress that reached her ankles and was barefoot. She was peacefully resting her head on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto saw their children returning and motioned for them to be quiet so they wouldn't wake their mother. Noticing this, the two children quietly approached them. "Tusen," Boruto whispered. "We're home, and I got Akira a new book." Naruto smiled at them as Akira held up the book with great excitement. He gave them a quick thumbs up before signaling them to go inside and get ready for dinner. They nodded and went inside, leaving him with his still sleeping wife. With a gentle nudge of his shoulder, he woke her. "Hey, it's time for dinner," he said to her in a slightly deeper voice. Kurama kept her eyes closed, letting out a yawn on his shoulder. "You smell good," she murmured tiredly. Naruto smirked at her compliment, stroking her hair and ears. "So I've been told," he teased, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Ready to eat." She lifted her head from his shoulder, opening her red eyes to look at him. "Carry me," she requested, still sounding sleepy. Naruto let out a soft chuckle and lifted her up in his arms, carrying her inside. The family of 4 then had their dinner. The state of Konoha. Things had not been going well in the Hidden Leaf village for some time. After Naruto's banishment, some of their alliances had frayed. The Wave, Suna, and even other villages that had formed an alliance with Konoha because of a certain blonde severed their ties. While they still had some allies, Suna was their most significant partner, and without them, Konoha was somewhat vulnerable. Compounding this, they had banished their own Jinchuriki, and the fear they once inspired in other villages was gone. They were now embroiled in a war with both Kumagakure and Otagakure, with Omegakure reportedly in talks with Kumo to join forces and destroy the leaf. The war had been ongoing for years, with their enemies steadily gaining ground. It was a major blow to the village when the last loyal Uchiha, Suzuki, joined Orochimaru and the Sound in their mission to destroy the leaf. The council was furious at this betrayal and placed Suzuki in the bingo book. Following Naruto's banishment, Tsunade had also resigned as Hokage and left Konoha with Shizune. Kakashi was now the 6th Hokage, but he had little real authority. Thanks to the elders on the council, things had gone from bad to worse for Konoha. Currently, Kakashi sat in his office, gazing out at the dreary village he called home. Due to the constant threat of invasion, most villagers had been staying indoors. The streets were often empty, and a dark cloud of despair hung over the village. Kakashi sighed, trying to think of a way to lift the spirits of the villagers and the shinobi who remained. He felt at a loss and looked up at the stone face of the fourth Hokage on the mountain. He sighed in disappointment, feeling he had failed the village and his sensei. A knock on his door pulled him from his thoughts, and he quickly composed himself. "Enter," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. The door opened, and several familiar faces came in. Asuma and his team, along with Kurane and her team, entered. Most of the former genin had now become chunin and had stayed together as a team during the war. Only Shikamaru was a jounin. The 8 of them looked to their Hokage, who had a mission of the highest importance for them all. "As you know, we are at war with Kumo and Oto," he began, clasping his hands and placing them on his desk. "We are at a disadvantage, and with Orochimaru and Sasuke in the mix, we need more allies. If Ain joins them, then without stronger reinforcements, Konoha will fall." A grim silence filled the room. "I am sending all of you to Earth Country to find us more allies. I've also heard rumors that the infamous White Fox is somewhere in Earth. If you can persuade him to help us, then Ain will not join Kumo and Oto." There was a collective gasp at the mention of the White Fox. Most had read reports of the war between Aim and Kusa years ago, and how one man, or according to some, a true demon, had easily dismantled Aim's forces. The shinobi of Aim now made it a point that if you saw the White Fox, all you could do was pray he made your death quick. "Hokage-sama," Ino started. "Are you sure the White Fox would even help us?" Kakashi shook his head in resignation. "I highly doubt it, but if you do find him, try to convince him as best you can. I don't care how you do it, just get him and others to aid us in this war." "Understood, understood, Hokage-sama," Asuma replied. "When do we leave?" "In 2 hours. Good luck to you all." "This mission should take no more than 2 weeks," Kakashi stated. They left his office and began to prepare for their journey to Earth Country. A week later. 2 hours later, just outside of Konoha, the group of 8 was making their way to Earth Country, and conversations began. "So, what do you guys think about all this?" Kiba asked his friends while their senseis were ahead of them. "If you want my honest opinion," Kiba Shikamaru began, "I think this is going to be a bit of a pain." "What makes you say that?" Ino asked. "First, we have to go to Earth Country hoping to secure an alliance for the war, and you all know how IWA Ninja feel about the leaf. So, for the most part, we're mainly tasked with finding this White Fox to take Aim out of the picture," Shikamaru continued. "There's also another reason the Hokage sent us to Earth, but it's just a theory for now." "And what would that be?" Koji asked his best friend. "There was a rumor that Naruto is somewhere in Earth Country," Shikamaru answered. This got a mix of reactions from everyone. Hinata stumbled a bit on the tree branch she was moving through at the sound of the man's name she loved. Shino's eyes widened slightly at the news. Koji and Ino gasped, and Kiba simply hung his head. After the night of his banishment, most of them had gone to that festival. They hadn't known what it was for until the fireworks went off and Naruto's apartment was engulfed in flames. They hadn't even known about his banishment until then. After the explosion, an Umbu told them that Naruto had seen them at the festival. He probably thought they were also celebrating his banishment, which made most of the group feel terrible. "So if Naruto is somewhere in Earth," Shikamaru continued, "then we have to bring him back, no matter what." Naruto had been out for a walk with his family to the village to get some groceries. Since nearly everyone there knew him, they were all greeted by the villagers. It wasn't common knowledge that Kurama was the 9-tailed fox, so she was given fairly normal looks from everyone. Thanks to what Naruto did for the people of the small village years ago, the entire place had been renovated. It wasn't large enough to be considered a major village, but it was big enough to house every single woman who had been involved in what happened years ago. Akira was on her father's shoulders, engrossed in her new book about musical instruments while Boruto ran around. He always had so much energy, likely because of the combined chakra of Kurama and Naruto in his body. Strangely enough, he always had a boundless amount of energy because of this. Kurama held onto Naruto's hand as they made their way through the village to gather groceries. During this, Boruto had run a bit ahead of his family. Both Naruto and Kurama weren't overly concerned since he knew his way around, and everyone in the village knew him, so there was nothing to worry about. Boruto decided to go into the forest again and have some fun while the rest of his family was back in the village. He was leaping from tree to tree, climbing higher and higher until he reached the very top. When he was there, he stood on a large, jutting branch and looked out into the distance. Boruto always wondered what lay beyond Earth Country. Akira would tell him about other villages in completely different places from the book she read, but there was a difference between reading about it and actually seeing it for yourself. As Boruto looked out, he was unaware that he was being watched. 2 men dressed in dark ninja attire were on another tree, passing by when they spotted the child. The 2 ninja were from Kumo and looked a bit beaten and bruised. "Did you see that kid?" one of them asked the other. He had several deep cuts on his body and, for some reason, deep bite marks from a large creature. Yeah, the other one grunted. He had several deep cuts on his arms and back, yet he was still able to move. If there's a kid here, that means there's a village we can hide in. Good. I'm sure we lost those ninja. I still can't believe they found out we were trying to expand into Earth, the first one said. I'll grab the kid and have him show us where the village is. When we heal up, we'll bring more men to subjugate it as our own. We'll need the outpost. As he said this, they heard a rustle behind them. As quickly as they could, they leaped from the branch toward the boy just as a massive dog and a teen leaped at them. The dog was huge and tried, but failed, to snap its powerful jaws on one of the ninja. Both Kumo ninja tensed up and decided to throw konoha at the beast and its master, only for a wall of flies to block the attack. That's when they saw the rest of the konoha ninja appear from the other trees. Thinking quickly, the ninja with the deep bite mark threw a smoke bomb at the group. This had no effect as the large dog pounced on the other man, its teeth at his neck. Ha ha, great job, Akamaru, Kiba yelled, only to realize the other ninja was gone. Where did he go? Koji started before Akamaru growled above them. They all looked up to see the man holding a boy who looked surprisingly similar to someone else they were looking for. They all froze when they saw the boy, especially Hinata. His blonde hair, even with red tips, and whisker marks reminded them all of Naruto. The Kumo ninja had his arm wrapped around Boruto's neck and held a kunai to his red eyes. He began to snicker. I'm leaving. Don't follow me, Konoha scum, or the brat dies. None of the Konoha ninja moved, as they didn't want to harm the boy who might know where Naruto was. Or maybe the boy was Naruto in a transformation. But if that were the case, why wasn't he fighting back? Dude, you're in serious trouble when my Tusen shows up, Boruto yelled, shocking the group even more. They started to think that his father might be Naruto, but the Kumo ninja didn't care as he was about to stab the boy in the eye. Before anyone could stop him, a blur shot through them and held the Kumo ninja by the throat. He dropped Boruto, and the boy landed on a nearby branch. The Kumo ninja was gasping for air as the figure, dressed in dark pants, a white shirt, and simple sandals, held him in a vicious death grip. The group was now in complete shock as they had found their old friend from so long ago. His blonde hair was the same, he was taller, and the girls were blushing at how his muscular body was visible as his shirt clung to him. Surprisingly, even Kurane blushed at him. Not surprisingly, both Hinata and Ino nearly had nosebleeds looking at him. Naruto spoke to his son, getting his attention. Are you okay? Boruto gave him a thumbs up and a big grin. Naruto returned the grin before turning serious and looking at the Kumo ninja, who was nearly unconscious in his grip. Naruto held him for a few more seconds before letting go and allowing gravity to do its work. The Kumo ninja fell harshly through branches all the way to the forest floor. Wow, Tusen, Boruto began as he and Naruto looked down to where the ninja had landed. That was awesome. Naruto ruffled his son's hair before hearing his name called from behind him. Naruto-kun, Hinata called out softly. Naruto turned and saw the 8 of them standing there, speechless by his presence. He hadn't paid them any mind and was more concerned for his son than anything else. So it came as a real shock when Naruto saw them all there in front of him after all these years. He started hesitantly. Hey, guys. After Naruto had dealt with the Kumo ninja and checked on his son, he turned at the sound of his name being called by a familiar voice. To his slight surprise, the voice belonged to one of his old former classmates from when he was a kid. As he looked at her and the rest of the Konoha ninja he hadn't seen or thought of in years, he took the time to get a good look at them all. The former genin he once knew had grown quite a bit, but the general reaction to seeing him was the same for everyone right now. Shock. Naruto, however, remained mostly unfazed. Instead of uttering another word, he simply placed a hand on Boruto's shoulder and the two vanished. The Konoha group was left speechless by his sudden departure. Asuma quickly ordered everyone to search for him. As his order was given and they all scattered, a flurry of questions raced through their minds. Who was that child? Had he been living here all along? What had he been doing for all these years? How had he become so incredibly fast? But the most pressing question was for Hinata, as a devastating realization struck her. If that boy's father is Naruto-kun, then who is the woman who has stolen my dream of being with him? Her initial shock quickly gave way to a simmering rage. Rage directed at the whore who had taken Naruto from her and crushed her dream of having his children. Shikamaru knew he wasn't fast enough to keep up with Naruto. That speed was far beyond anything they possessed. Perhaps with Lee, if his weights were off and he opened a few of his gates, he might have stood a chance. Shikamaru had already suspected, long before they entered Earth Country, that if they found Naruto, he would have moved on. Maybe he'd even started a family and was living a peaceful life. It seemed his theory about a family was correct. If that was true, and if he was living peacefully in some village, who were they to take that away from him? Certainly not his friends. Kiba had been trying to pick up Naruto's scent ever since he left, but he had found nothing. It was as if his scent had simply disappeared. Kiba and Akamara stopped at the entrance of a village populated mostly by women and some traveling entertainers. The two immediately became the center of attention. For the villagers, it wasn't every day they saw a ninja, and it was even rarer to see one with a massive dog. Kiba and Akamaro ignored the stares, focusing on their search for Naruto and the boy they assumed was his son. Despite their excellent tracking abilities, they found it incredibly difficult to pinpoint the blonde's scent. It was as if his scent was everywhere, confusing them endlessly. Before they could continue their fruitless search, Asuma and Ino appeared next to them. "Did you find him, Kiba?" Ino asked the Inyazuka. "Nothing," Kiba replied. "It's like he and Akamaro have been all over the place, too many times to count." "If that's the case," Asuma began as he approached a woman working at a stall. "Excuse me, but have you seen a man with blonde hair walking around with a child who has nearly the same blonde hair?" Asuma wanted to keep his description vague. Unfortunately for him and the others, his vagueness wasn't very effective. "Oh, you mean Naruto and his son, Boruto," the woman said, surprising the Jounin. "Actually, yes, I have. They just went back to their home in the forest." She pointed in the direction of Naruto's house and smiled at the ninjas. "Thank you," Asuma said, bowing to her. He and his two students ran in the direction of the house. They had a difficult time navigating the thick forest, where it would be easy to get lost. Luckily, they leaped into the trees and got a better view of the area. In the distance, they spotted a white house surrounded by plants, with a clear view of a lake not far away. "There," Asuma said to the two, urging them to move even faster. Just as they landed in a clearing in front of the house, they saw both Naruto and the child, now known to them as Boruto, heading toward the front door. "Naruto!" Kiba yelled out to the blonde. Naruto sighed and turned to face the three in front of his house. He gave them an impassive look that made both Kiba and Ino's hearts sink. He crossed his arms and stared at them while Boruto just stood there, watching. Before anyone else could speak, the others appeared next to Ino, Kiba, and Asuma. They all got a good look at Naruto as he put his hands in his pockets. The group, although happy to see their long-lost friend, was a little heartbroken by the indifferent stare he was giving them. Hinata took a step forward to speak to her Naruto-kun, when the front door opened to reveal a slender woman with tan skin and long crimson hair and eyes. She looked at her husband and son, then noticed the konoha ninjas in front of them. Kurama had to maintain her facade as a normal woman for obvious reasons and pretended to look shocked and troubled, but in her mind, she was grinning with delight. This mental grin, since their minds were linked, was shared with Naruto, who had to stifle a laugh. Kurama saw the Hyuga standing in front of the group with a truly shocked and horrified look on her face and had to try even harder not to grin in victory at having claimed her mate. "Naruto-kun," Kurama began in a sweet, innocent, and completely fake tone that fooled no one. "What's going on out here?" Naruto sighed again as he answered her. "Nothing. Just the past trying to catch up with me, that's all." "Naruto," Asuma said, stepping past the still-stunned Hinata. He took a step onto the porch and instantly regretted it when a massive wave of killer intent hit him like a ton of bricks. He felt himself about to drop to his knees if he stayed any closer to the house, so he moved away, and the pressure vanished. Asuma stared at the blonde with wide eyes, breathing heavily. "I don't know why you're all here when you have a war to fight, or how you found me, but here's some advice." Naruto turned away from them while ushering his family inside. He turned his head and gave them a glare that sent a bone-chilling shiver down their spines. "Leave, and don't come back." Before they could say anything, Naruto shut the door, and they were hit by an even more powerful wave of killer intent. This one felt different to Asuma. He had paled. Naruto's killer intent was just heavy and breathtaking, but this felt like death itself was desperately trying to grab them and drag them to the fiery depths of the afterlife. The others felt it too and, for a brief moment, saw something that made them feel true fear. When they looked up, the sky was blood red, and screams came from every direction. Blood was everywhere, and they could see countless bodies lying at their feet. Kumo-nin, Aim-nin, Oto-nin, Konoha-nin, even themselves, all dead in the most gruesome ways imaginable. They all went pale and turned to leave, but before they did, the last thing they saw near the house was the Kyuubi no Kitsune standing tall over the dead. It looked at them, baring its razor-sharp and bloody teeth and a snarling grin, and spoke one word to them all that made more than a few of them faint from the sheer force of its voice. "Run!" Just like that, everything went back to normal. There were no bodies, no blood, the sky was clear, and Naruto's house was exactly as it had been before. All 8 ninjas, students and senseis alike, felt a cold dread at the sight of the calm and peaceful house and its surroundings. They were so terrified that they all left, scared of whatever powerful genjutsu that was. A few, like Shikamaru and Kurane, had a similar thought. When did Naruto learn such a powerful genjutsu? When they made their way back to the small village, panting and feeling slightly more at ease, they stopped in front of a bookstand where a white-haired girl saw where they had come from. "Oh, you must be friends of Naruto-san," she said to the group with a soft smile. They looked at her and saw how calm she was. Was that genjutsu so powerful that it only affected them? "You know him?" Kiba asked, still a bit shaken from the genjutsu. "Of course," she continued. "Everyone knows Naruto-san. He's the one who saved all of us years ago. Saved you all? Asuma asked with a questioning look. Setsu's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained it to tell them the story. Well, years ago, most of the people in this village were part of a human trafficking and prostitution ring run by bandits and a ninja. A few of us, including myself, managed to escape the camp, but we didn't get far before we were surrounded. That's when Naruto-san showed up and slaughtered the bandits, freeing the rest of us. He showed them no mercy and even let me deal with the leader myself. I think he said something about him being a sound nin. The group's eyes widened as Setsu continued. Anyway, after that, Naruto-san decided to stay here after taking off that mask and started a family. Mask? Shino asked. What mask? Setsu looked a little confused for a moment before seeing the expressions on the Konoha ninjas' faces. She smirked a bit, a very interested gleam in her white eyes, before answering them. Well, he used to be the White Fox. To say that the group of Konoha ninjas were flabbergasted was an understatement. How could the hyperactive, knucklehead ninja of Konoha become the infamous and ruthless White Fox that all of AIM was terrified of? The thought alone was completely ridiculous. Wasn't it? Could Naruto really change so drastically after being banished? As the group pondered this, Setsu wore a very dark look that made the Konoha group question how much she knew or why she was looking at them like that. Finally, she decided to address their concerns. I may not know much about Naruto-san's past, but he told me something I found very interesting, his strong disdain for the Hidden Leaf Village. She pointed to their headbands. And judging by the fact that you all were the same symbol and ran from his home, I take it he didn't enjoy your company. Her tone was an intentional insult to the Konoha group. They continued to stare at Setsu and then looked back at the path that led to Naruto's house. So he has a family now? Koji asked, trying to regain his composure to no avail. Yes, Setsu answered. I have no idea where his wife came from, but he has 2 children, a son and his younger daughter. Setsu stifled a chuckle before continuing. You should all head back to your village. I highly doubt that Naruto-san will help you with your war. The group turned to Setsu in shock, only to find that she was no longer there. After that, they decided that heading back was probably the best idea. They walked away from the path and out of the village, all the while trying to regain some sense of composure after the genjutsu and the shocking realization that Naruto Uzumaki was indeed the White Fox. A few days later, back at Naruto's home, Naruto had to fight the urge to punch a hole in the wall. He didn't want his children to see that side of him, and he knew Kurama would kill him if he damaged their home out of anger. He sat down on a couch and tried his hardest not to think about what had just happened. As he closed his eyes, he felt his wife's hand on his shoulder. He opened his eyes and saw her staring back at him, worry clearly visible in her crimson eyes. You okay? She asked softly. Naruto smiled at her and cupped her face with his hand to bring her closer. He planted a gentle kiss on her lips and brought her down to sit next to him. Yeah, he whispered to her. I'm okay. As long as I have you guys, I'll never go back there. Really? Akira asked as she sat next to her father and looked up at him with pleading eyes. You promised you wouldn't go back there, Otusan. Boruto sat next to his younger sister, nodding his head in determination. It brought a smile to Naruto's face as he hugged his little girl, and she hugged him back. You don't have to worry about me, guys, Naruto said to them. I plan on staying here for a very long time. A few days later, the 8 Konoha ninjas had finally made it back to Konoha. It took a full 2 days for the shock and aftereffects of the genjutsu to wear off, but they were finally home. They quickly made their way to the Hokage's office to inform him of what they had discovered in Earth Country, only to find Sakura and Team Guy there as well. Kakashi was slightly relieved to see them return and was eagerly anticipating their news. I take it you all have news for me, Kakashi asked them in a cheerful tone, hiding his tiredness and frustration with the council. Asuma stepped forward. Hokage-sama, we found Naruto. The news surprised the Hokage, Team Guy, and especially Sakura. When Naruto's banishment was announced, she had broken down. She had lost both of her teammates in the span of 1 week and was now part of a newly formed Team 7 with a new sensei. It just wasn't the same in Konoha without Naruto. She perked up at his name but then saw the hurt expressions on her fellow ninjas' faces, and her heart sank a bit. Where is he then? Is he outside waiting? Aura? She was cut off by Kurane. He's still in Earth Country in a small village. He has a family and is living peacefully with no intention of coming back. Kurane had to turn her head away from the broken look on Sakura's face. He's also the White Fox, Shikamaru said to the still-stunned Kakashi. This got the intended reaction as everyone in the room not on Team Asuma or Team Kurane looked at the Nara clan member. Someone in the village told us everything about how he saved the villagers from bandits and a sound ninja years ago as the White Fox. Now he lives there with his wife and children. Naruto-kun is married, Lee asked in surprise. Shikamaru nodded to Lee, and that was when Kakashi sighed out loud. Everyone else, except for Sakura who was still processing all of this, turned to their leader. The council is not going to be happy about this. The council meeting. And sure enough, they weren't. How could that demon brat refuse to help us? He should be grateful for all we've done for him. There's no way that monster is a hero to anyone. If anything, he should be begging us to come back here. Damn that demon to exactly where he belongs. In hell. Enough, Kakashi shouted at the civilian council. He had finally had enough of their constant arguing and was not going to tolerate them badmouthing his former student, who was now a war hero. You all make these claims, but it was all of you who had him banished in the first place. This is your punishment for your arrogance and selfishness, and the village will suffer because of you. Kakashi's words had an impact on the shinobi side of the council but less so on the civilians. Unfortunately for everyone, a certain bandaged elder had other ideas. After the meeting, Danzo sat in his chambers, furious that his plans were in tatters. He had needed Naruto to be banished so he could manipulate the boy into joining his faction, but those plans were ruined when his Rutombu couldn't find him anywhere. It was as if he had simply vanished. Now he had been informed that the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the most powerful tailed beast and demon in history, was also the ruthless and infamous White Fox. This revelation made an already bad situation worse, and he had to devise a new plan to turn the teenager into his personal weapon for konoha. That's when a sadistic idea came to mind. Sai, he said, and the pale Rutombu appeared in a kneeling position. Yes, Danzo-sama? Sai responded without emotion. I need you and a few of my root to go to Earth Country. Danzo noticed Sai's head lift in a questioning manner. I need that Jinchuriki for my plans to succeed, and if he won't come willingly, he stood up and gave a sinister grin, then we'll have to see how much he truly loves his precious children. Unbeknownst to Danzo, a small snake was slithering just outside his room, and it quickly moved away to deliver a very interesting message to its master, Orochimaru. Orochimaru's base. Deep within the tunnels beneath the Sound Village, a snake slithered as fast as it could back to its master. As it moved, it passed a specific room and froze in fear. It turned its head and saw a dark figure walking slowly towards it. Before the figure could get any closer, a new voice announced its presence. My spy has returned earlier than I expected. The voice caught the attention of both the snake and the figure. They turned to see the snake's son walking toward them with his ever-present grin. And what exactly was so important that you directly disobeyed my orders to return within a month? It's only been a week. Despite his calm demeanor, Orochimaru was not pleased. The snake answered quickly with a few hisses, and the figure noticed that Orochimaru was giving him one of his very interested stares. The figure continued to listen and watch as the son chuckled softly for a few seconds before erupting into full-blown laughter. So, what did it say? The figure asked, slightly irritated. Orochimaru stopped his laughter for a moment to address him with a sinister smile. He was just telling me that your old teammate has been found, Sasuke. Sasuke stepped out of the shadows, a slight furrow in his brow. The mere mention of the dope's name made his blood boil. It wasn't enough that the move Naruto used years ago at the Valley of the End nearly defeated his Chidori, but the fact that he almost beat him with it. Sasuke had snickered when he heard of his old rival's banishment, assuming he would just crawl under a bridge and live a slow, miserable life. But since that day, the blonde had simply vanished from the ninja world. This was the first piece of information on him since then. Sasuke began with an arrogant smirk. So, why is this making you laugh like a lunatic? The last Uchiha crossed his arms and leaned against the doorframe. Orochimaru maintained his smirk, even with the subtle insult, and answered him. It seems that Danzo has forgotten his place and knows the Uzumaki's location. He's sending his Rutombu to get the boy's attention, and the only way to do that is, apparently, to snatch his children. At that, Sasuke's eyes widened before he clenched his teeth in anger. How? How could that idiot have children? How could he find happiness after being banished? The very thought of it all made his Sharingan flare up with rage. And what exactly do you plan to do about this? Sasuke said through clenched teeth. Orochimaru's grin widened as he said his next words. Well, it would be very useful for my own plans if the boy were to be dealt with. And I think those little children of his would make excellent leverage as well. Sasuke's lips curled into a devious, evil grin as he easily pieced together what the Sannin was asking him to do. The forest clearing. A few days later, Naruto was walking with Akira to a clearing not far from his home. She had been pestering him about how her eyes kept turning red ever since those Konoha ninjas had come by. Instead of asking her mother to explain it all, she insisted on spending more time with her father. In the back of his mind, Naruto understood why his daughter was staying so close to him. She wanted her father to stay with her, her brother, and her mother forever, just as he had promised. Naruto didn't mind, though. He thought her behavior was absolutely adorable. They arrived at a clearing, and Naruto sat down next to a tree, motioning for Akira to join him. She pouted a little before sitting on his lap with her arms crossed. She was still pouting as they sat under the tree, watching the gentle breeze rustle the grass. Naruto had a smile on his face as he watched, but it faded slightly when he saw the look on his daughter's face. She was looking down with a slightly worried expression. Naruto saw that and could feel that she was getting teary-eyed. With a sigh, Naruto spoke to her in a gentle tone while stroking her beautiful hair. This wasn't about asking me about your eyes, was it, Akira? Akira remained silent as she curled closer to her father. Naruto could tell that she had been feeling sad ever since that day. Akira, Naruto said, holding her comfortingly. Do you see that out there? At first, Akira didn't look up to see what her father wanted to show her. After a few seconds and a sniffle, she looked up at her father's smiling face and gave a tiny smile in return. Naruto pointed to the open field, and Akira looked out, her eyes widening at the sight. In front of her was an incredibly beautiful scene, a peaceful valley of lush greenery that stretched as far as the eye could see toward the forest. It was a spectacle that made Akira almost forget why she was on the verge of tears. She watched the gentle wind move the grass and the leaves fall to the earth around them. It was a truly magnificent sight. Akira, Naruto began, holding her in his arms. She looked up to see a calm grin on her father's face as he continued. Have you ever wondered why your mom and I came here? Akira shook her head. No. It's because we looked at this place and saw something we had both been craving for a long time, Naruto answered, looking out at the valley with a smile. What was it, Tou-san? Akira asked him. A chance to start over, Naruto answered, still looking out. A chance to live without worrying about our past or dwelling on our failures. A chance to do something we both wanted for so long, to have a family. He said the last part as he looked down at Akira, who began to well up with tears. Naruto cupped her face with both hands and wiped away her tears as he continued. You and Boruto are my world. Your mom is the woman I love with all my heart, and I will never let anything come between me and you three. I love all of you, I love this place, I love our home, and I wouldn't trade any of it for the world, Akira. Okay? Akira's eyes were misty, but she nodded slowly before throwing herself at him. She hugged her father tightly, sobbing into his chest. Naruto simply hugged her back and stroked her hair, cooing into her ears. They stayed like that for a few minutes until Akira suddenly stopped crying and raised her head to meet his eyes. Naruto was a bit taken aback when he saw the resolve and determination in her bright blue eyes. They had tear stains on the sides, which made her look cute, but she was determined nonetheless. Then can I become as strong as you, Tou-san? She asked, surprising the blonde father for a moment before he smiled at her. Of course, you can, Akira, he told her, playfully rubbing her head, earning a big-toothed smile from her. Your mom and I will even train you if you want. There are some things we have to teach you, Anya. Before Naruto could finish, he grabbed Akira and dodged a few shuriken that came from the forest shadows. The shuriken kept coming, and Naruto kept dodging with ease, despite Akira squirming in fear. Akira, Naruto said in a stern tone that got his daughter's attention. It's okay. I've got you. The mere smirk on her father's face was enough to reassure her as he landed and dodged another wave of shuriken. He continued to dodge until one almost hit his daughter. That was the wrong move. Naruto caught the shuriken mere inches from a strand of Akira's hair and threw it back at its attacker almost too fast for the attacker to dodge. The attacker fell to the ground from a tree, and Naruto saw that it was an umbu from Konoha, a root umbu to be precise. The shuriken had gone cleanly through the umbu's mask and into his skull. Before Naruto could say anything else, at least 20 or so root umbus surrounded him. They all wore white masks of different animals and the same black cloaks. Naruto Uzumaki, a man in a falcon mask, said as he stepped forward. Our mission is to ensure your cooperation with Konoha for the war between us and our enemies. Will you submit and come with us peacefully? Naruto sat Akira down as he looked for an opening. Akira was clinging to his pants leg, terrified of these men. She had never seen ninjas like this before, only the Konoha group and a few friendly passerby ninjas. This was different. Even with her father there to reassure her, it was still scary to be surrounded by all these masked ninjas. I already gave the last group of Konoha ninjas my answer, Naruto said to the falcon masked root. My answer remains the same even if you attack me. Now leave, or I'll make sure none of you do. The root umbu got into a ready stance and prepared to attack. Unbeknownst to Naruto, their real objective was to distract him while Sai and a few others attempted to capture his other child. With Sai could tell that his comrades were about to engage Naruto directly. When he was assigned this mission, he knew that Naruto, being the infamous White Fox, would be an interesting opponent, but once Danzo told him to simply retrieve one of the children as leverage, the idea of facing Naruto went away. Sai and a few others arrived at the house that Asuma had reported. One of the root members without a mask used a wood-style jutsu to quietly break the door's hinges so as not to draw any attention. Once the door was open, they went inside in search of a child. They were not concerned about the wife and had no orders to deal with her, so if they ran into her, they would most likely have to subdue or injure her to get Naruto's attention. Hey, a young voice came from the right of the group of four. They turned to see a young boy in a pair of orange shorts and a white shirt standing there, looking at them with a bit of anger on his face. Who the heck are you guys, and what are you doing in our house? Boruto yelled at them. Target acquired, Sai said as he disappeared behind the boy to deliver a chop to his neck. But just as he reached for him, a hand grabbed his wrist and squeezed tightly, causing a loud snapping sound. Sai gasped in pain but held back his emotions, gritting his teeth. "I don't know who you are, nor do I care," a feminine voice said, sending chills down the Root Ninja's spines. "But you signed your own death warrants when you decided to even lay your eyes on my son." She was dressed in a long black dress with red trim on the ends and sleeves. Kurama's eyes burned with anger as she flung the pale Root Ninja at his comrades with incredible force. Sai crashed into the three, sending them flying out of the house. "Alright, Kaa-san," Boruto yelled excitedly, raising his fist in the air. Kurama just grinned and shook her head at her son's antics. "Stay inside, Boruto. I'm going to take care of these Konoha fools." Boruto nodded and shook his head excitedly, as he would get to witness the rare sight of his mother in action. He had seen glimpses of her and his father sparring, but never seriously enough to be called a real fight. So this would be very cool to watch for the young blonde. Kurama stepped out and smirked at the four as they stood up and took defensive positions. Sai, despite having the use of only one arm, pulled out a scroll and a brush. He started to draw on the scroll with his teeth, and a few animals made of ink came rushing toward Kurama. She didn't even flinch, all she did was flare a very small portion of her killer intent, causing the ink to melt from the heat. The four were beyond surprised, but before they could say or do anything else, Kurama was already next to them in a burst of speed they couldn't even see. She delivered a powerful kick to Sai's already broken hand, shattering the rest of his arm and sending him flying away from them. The man without a mask's eyes widened, and he leaped back as he saw the woman reach for a short sword just under her dress. The man without a mask watched through his brown hair as his two other comrades were beheaded with such ferocity. "Damn it," the man yelled. After performing a series of hand seals and preparing to unleash his jutsu, he was stopped cold by the sight of the woman's fiery red eyes. He became paralyzed as a vivid, brutal, and inhumane vision of his own demise unfolded before him. He was ensnared in a genjutsu so advanced it couldn't have been cast by a normal person. Who was this woman? Who in the world did Naruto Uzumaki marry? Before he could ponder further, Kurama moved deliberately toward him. She knew there were countless ways to end this battle instantly, but she also understood that revealing too much of her power could jeopardize her family. Instead of using her more extravagant, husband-like fighting styles, she opted for Kenjutsu to dispatch these Konoha scumbags. Kurama approached the man, who was now shaking uncontrollably. She halted right in front of him, smirking down at his pitiful state, and drew her sword arm back for the final strike. That's when she felt a presence she hadn't felt in years, and it stopped her cold. She spun around toward her home, her eyes widening at the sight of a long snake coiled around her son's body. The snake met her gaze, hissed, and then vanished with an unconscious Boruto. Boruto! Kurama's scream was so loud it sent her immense killing intent rippling through the air. Meanwhile, Naruto was just finishing off the last of the Rudanbu. Protecting his daughter while initially unarmed had made it a little challenging. He couldn't use any of his powerful jutsu besides the Cage Bushin, fearing he might accidentally harm Akira. It took him a moment, but he quickly dealt with them. Just as he finished, he and his daughter heard the ear-splitting scream that sent shockwaves through the valley. The sheer killing intent caused all of his clones to disperse and nearly made Akira faint. Naruto held her close, releasing his own ki to shield her. He knew if Kurama was this enraged, something had happened to Boruto. Wasting no time, Naruto scooped up Akira and raced toward the house. He arrived to find her holding a pale root member by the throat, screaming in a furious rage. "Where did you take my son?" she shrieked repeatedly, her very presence unintentionally killing the man. "Where is he?" Naruto had seen her this angry before, so it wasn't new to him, but Akira was absolutely terrified. She had never witnessed her mother in such a state. The sight of her anger, as tails began to sprout from her lower back, made the little girl cower behind her father. Noticing this, Naruto quickly went to his furious wife to calm her down. "Where is he, Kurama?" Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder, causing her to turn with rage still burning in her eyes. "That's enough. Not until I know where these worthless sacks of flesh took our boy," she bellowed at him, her tail swirling with fury. "And do you really want to show this side of you to your daughter?" Naruto said softly, gesturing for her to look at the trembling Akira. Kurama's eyes went wide as she saw the fear in Akira's gaze, all of it directed at her. She dropped the nearly lifeless body and reined in her anger. Her tails vanished, and her killing intent faded. The rage in her eyes was replaced by grief and sorrow. She wanted to say something to her own flesh and chakra, but no words would form as she broke down. Naruto held her, knowing this was a side of herself she never wanted her children to see. Akira slowly approached her parents, about to say something, when another presence made itself known and knocked her unconscious with a chop to the back of her neck. Naruto and Kurama whirled around, their shock and growing anger focused on Sasuke Uchiha, who was holding their daughter. He smirked at them before activating his Sharingan. Before they could look away, they were caught in a genjutsu designed specifically for the Kyuubi. As the woman fell to the ground, twitching slightly, Naruto struggled to stay on his feet. No matter what, he was going to save his children. SS Sasuke. Naruto yelled, trying to stand. What are you doing here? He managed to say. Sasuke smirked at his former rival as he held up Akira. If you want your children to be safe, then come and get them. He lowered Akira and turned to leave. Before he shine away, he looked back at Naruto with the same smirk. Oh, if you want to know where I am with these two brats of yours, ask their leader. He gestured to the man still caught in the genjutsu and the pale, gasping root member before disappearing. Naruto's eyes widened as he finally broke free of the genjutsu. He immediately went to Kurama, who was still convulsing from the powerful Sharingan genjutsu, and released her from it. She stopped seizing and fell unconscious. Despite her status as the world's most powerful demon, powerful genjutsu that could affect her fox form could incapacitate her in her human form. Naruto let her rest as he heard the masked root member groan behind him. Naruto's eyes narrowed in anger as he turned to see the man trying to stand. Naruto walked toward the man, who was on shaky legs. The man looked up at the furious blonde and tried to use his wood-style jutsu, but was still under the aftereffects of Kurama's genjutsu. Naruto wasted no time, grabbing the man by the throat and lifting him off the ground. The man tried again to summon a jutsu, but a Naruto clone sliced off both of his hands with a Kayakuma. The man shrieked in pain as he began to bleed out. The clone handed Naruto his blade before dispersing. Naruto tightened his grip, staring a piercing glare into the man's eyes, a gaze that could make even the mightiest men tremble. Who the fuck sent you? Naruto asked in a tone that promised death if he didn't get an answer. The man, unable to defend himself with jutsu, answered in a pained voice. Danzo-sama sent us to ensure your loyalty in the war. Naruto's eyes blazed with even more rage. He remembered Danzo from his childhood and how the man would talk to his Umbu about his plans for him. Shortly after his banishment, Naruto realized Danzo wanted to use him as a weapon for konoha. Thanks to Kurama, he had escaped those root Umbu back then. If Danzo knew where Orochimaru was, then it was time for Naruto to get his answers. If he wanted my attention, Naruto began, lowering his head, then he's got it. Naruto looked up. I'm going to get what I need from Danzo. Then I'm going to find Orochimaru and Sasuke. And after I'm done skinning the very flesh from their bones and letting maggots feast on their carcasses as they're buried alive, I'm going to burn Konoha to the ground. Before the man could protest, Naruto effortlessly flicked his wrist and snapped his neck. He dropped the body and continued to seethe in anger until he heard muffled groans behind him. He turned to see Kurama slowly stirring awake, and in the distance, the last root Umbu groaning as well. Naruto went to his wife and lifted her up gently. Naruto, Kurama said slowly, her eyes filled with pain. Kurama. Naruto began softly, then looked at her sternly. The look in his eyes was one of intense resolve. We're going to Konoha. The next day, things in Konoha had been escalating among the populace. Panic was spreading about the impending attack, and Kakashi dreaded all signs of it. The people were in a state of misery, counting the days until the attack from Orochimaru and his forces. Their allies had abandoned them because of their decision to banish a tremendous symbol of hope for a traitor who sided with their enemy. The fact that word had spread of Naruto Uzumaki being found and refusing to return didn't help. If he had come back, their alliances would have been restored, and they could defend against or even attack the Oto, Kumo, and now, unfortunately, a ninja. Kakashi looked at the village as people desperately tried to pack and leave for any safe haven, only to be stopped by various root Umbu. It pained Kakashi that he had no choice but to reinstate Danzo's root Umbu to quell the people's anger. The regular Umbu were stretched too thin with S-class missions like gathering intel and attempted assassinations on high-value targets. Regular Jounin and Shinin were also unavailable as they were preparing for the upcoming war. Genin were too inexperienced, so unfortunately, Danzo was his only option. After over an hour of deliberation, Kakashi caved and reinstated them. Kakashi looked at the monument of the previous Hokages. He looked at the fourth, his old sensei, and a lone tear fell from his eye. Sensei, Kakashi began in a low tone, his head bowed. I failed you. I failed your village. I failed your people. But most of all, I failed your son. He looked at the monument. Please forgive me. Just then, he heard a knock on the door. Composing himself, he quickly wiped away the tear and clasped his hands behind his back. Enter. As the door opened, Kakashi heard the voice of an old friend. Wow. I leave for a few years, and this is what happens. Kakashi turned around faster than he had in years to see the legendary Sannin, Jiraiya. He stood there with his arms crossed and a grin for the shocked Hokage. Jiraiya, Kakashi said, baffled. After hearing of Naruto's banishment years ago, Jiraiya had searched for his student without success. He had even sent his spy network out, but the results were the same. It was as if Naruto had simply vanished. After a while, he heard that Tsunade had stepped down as Hokage and left Konoha. Jiraiya then went to find her. It took months to find a trail and even longer to catch up, but when he did, he found her drowning her guilt in alcohol and gambling again. It pained Jiraiya to see his friend revert to her old ways after finally getting over her brother's and lover's deaths. He talked to her, trying to convince her to come back and help fight for her home, only to receive a punch to the face and a harsh lecture. All her pain, grief, and anger were unleashed on Jiraiya, directed at the council, the elders, the people, and the village itself. All for a treacherous brat who never cared about anyone but himself, and Naruto had to suffer for it. Jiraiya hadn't been there that day. He hadn't seen the look of betrayal and pain in Naruto's eyes as his world shattered. After her rant, Tsunade passed out, and Shizen told the Toad Sunin that Tsunade would not return to that awful village unless Naruto willingly came back. That's when Jiraiya heard about Aim joining Oto and Kusa to destroy Konoha. So here he was. Been a while, huh, Kakashi, Jiraiya said, dropping his smirk and putting on a serious expression. How are you holding up? Kakashi sighed, went to his chair, and sat down. He rubbed his temples as he leaned on the desk and explained the situation. The people of Konoha have lost hope. The Umbu are so thinly spread that if we survive this war, we'll have more losses than ever. The Jounin and Chunin are preparing but have lost morale. The council is hounding me, trying desperately to negotiate a full-on assault with the impending forces. And I had no choice but to reinstate Danzo's root Umbu. Kakashi leaned back. And to make things worse, Asuma and Kurane's team found Naruto in Earth Country. Jiraiya's eyes widened, and he dropped his arms. Where is he? Is he back in the village? Kakashi quickly stopped him. Naruto is fine, Jiraiya. He has a wife and 2 children and no interest in coming back. Kakashi saw the conflicted look in Jiraiya's eyes and shared another point that had shocked him as well. Naruto is also the White Fox. What? Jiraiya stuttered. Naruto is the one listed in the bingo book as the now SS rank ninja, the White Fox, Kakashi answered. He is the sole reason Kusa is still standing and why Aim fears anything associated with him. They cower and run at the mere mention of his name. And that is all Naruto. Jiraiya was dumbfounded. Not only had his former student's son been banished and started a family, but he was also the infamous White Fox. How had all of this happened? How? Front gate. As everyone was being cleared from the gate by the root Umbu, the 2 guards returned to watching for movement outside the village. They had noticed the root Umbu earlier and were sickened that those bastards had been reinstated. It made their blood boil, but they knew these were tougher times than ever before. They looked at each other and sighed in frustration before noticing a rustling sound nearby. They went on high alert, only to see a few rabbits scurrying out. They relaxed for a moment, but that was short-lived when 2 figures appeared out of a red-flamed shunshin right in front of them. What the hell? One of the guards said, pulling out a kunao. The other did the same, but their caution turned to fear when they saw who was in front of them. Standing there in a blood-red coat that reached past his knees, black ninja cargo pants, a dark red undershirt, black ninja shoes, and his signature white mask was the infamous White Fox. A woman stood next to him, wearing a similar outfit. Her coat was a dark crimson, the same color as her eyes, and her long red hair was tied in a ponytail. Both carried swords on their backs, the White Fox with his signature Akai Akuma, said to be the soul of a demon that only an evil soul could wield, and the woman with a short sword in a black sheath, with a dark crimson handle and a bright red guard. The 2 guards tensed at the sight of the White Fox and could only stand there, praying he wasn't here for a fight. The White Fox looked at them and shook his head slightly before turning to the woman. Let's go, he said, earning a nod. The 2 moved toward the entrance, but were stopped when both men stood in front of them, ready to defend their home even if it meant their lives. Both the White Fox and the woman stopped. They would have simply tossed these 2 aside like trash, but they wanted to bide their time when it came to the village. They planned to offer the villagers a false sense of security before completely shattering it. Instead of harming the 2 guards, both the White Fox and the woman moved with astonishing speed, appearing behind them and delivering a swift, precise chop to the back of their necks, knocking them out. We could just kill them all for what they did to you, Kurama began. You know that, don't you? Naruto's smirk was palpable under his mask, a sensation Kurama could feel and return with her own smirk. I know, Naruto responded as they continued into the village. But I won't. Not yet, at least. They didn't get far before they were surrounded by 5 root Umbu. The 5 tensed, recognizing who stood before them and bracing for a fierce battle. Naruto, however, simply reached inside his coat. He pulled out a bag and held it up for the root Umbu to see. By now, the crowd from before had gathered, watching the White Fox confront the root Umbu. They watched with a mix of awe, fear, and curiosity, wondering why someone as notorious as the White Fox was here. Then he spoke. I want to speak with the leader of this man here. The White Fox dropped the bag, and it rolled to one of the root. The leader of the small group picked it up and opened it. He instantly dropped it, and everyone watched as the head of a pale root Umbu rolled out. The Umbu and civilians stared at the White Fox with terror in their eyes and in their posture. I will only say this once, and only once, the White Fox said in a tone that allowed no argument. Where is Danzo? The root Umbu stood stiff, on the verge of collapsing under the sheer killing intent radiating from him. That's when a certain pink-haired teenager ran out of the crowd and stood behind the root. She was panting heavily and looked visibly shocked by what she was seeing. Naruto glanced at her before refocusing on the root umbu. Tell Danzo to get his one-eyed ass out here before I lose my patience. One of the root members took off, rushing to find Danzo-sama. As that root member left, the crowd began to fill with faces all too familiar to Naruto. His old friends stood in the crowd, keeping their distance. They had likely figured out he was the White Fox by now, so their hesitation was to be expected. He watched them as they processed the situation. Why was Naruto here? Whose head did he bring? Why did he want to speak with an elder council member? So many questions with no clear answers. Before they could even approach him, the Hokage, along with Danzo and the other elder council members, appeared in elite Shunshin. Naruto looked at his former sensei, now in the Hokage robes. He remembered a time when he wanted that for himself, but that was no longer the case. I see you're a little defensive. Kakashi started, but Danzo cut him off. Root Umbu seized them both. Before anyone could react, the Root Umbu charged at the two. Naruto and Kurama remained still as the small group followed Danzo's orders. The Rookie 9, plus Sakura, watched as the Root prepared to take down their friend and the woman, ready to step in and help. It wasn't necessary. The White Fox moved so fast that he now stood in front of Danzo with his bloodied sword drawn. The Root Umbu fell to the ground, piece by piece, causing more than a few civilians to lose their lunch at the brutal sight. Danzo stood in shock, holding his ground, ready to use any method to get out of this mess. You know where he is, Naruto said in the same menacing tone. Who? Danzo asked, a bead of sweat running down his face. Suddenly and without warning, the White Fox grabbed Danzo by the throat and lifted him effortlessly into the air. Danzo began choking, clawing at Naruto's arm. Kakashi stepped in, placing a firm hand on his former student's shoulder. Naruto looked at him. I don't know why you're here or what you're talking about. He tightened his grip. But not out here. Not now, Naruto, he whispered the last part. Naruto looked at him before turning back to Danzo. The old man was still gasping for air, and Naruto was in no mood to be subtle. Then I'll ask you one last time, nicely, he began, pulling Danzo closer to his masked face. Where the hell did Orochimaru take my children? Kakashi heard this and looked at the old man with shock and anger in his visible eye. If this meant what he thought it meant, Danzo must have been in communication with Orochimaru. I don't know what you're talking. Danzo managed to gasp before being choked again. Lie to me again, and you'll see firsthand why my blade is called the Red Demon, Naruto told him. Now where is Orochimaru, he said a little louder this time, for everyone to hear. The crowd and the ninja all around heard this, and murmurs began. Murmurs led to questions, and questions led to people voicing them. Some were a little more vocal than others. Naruto simply gave them a look and released some killing intent to silence the crowd. If you don't tell me where his base is, I'm going to have to reintroduce this village to my wife. He looked back at Kurama, who was still standing among the dead Root Umbu with her arms crossed. And you do not want her to do that, had Danzo squeaked. And what exactly could she do to one of the most powerful villages in the elemental nations? Naruto dropped Danzo and turned back to her. He nodded, and she nodded back. Suddenly, 9 large red tails emerged from her lower back and swirled around her. The crowd gasped in shock and fear as the tails began to grow in size. The woman was no longer visible, replaced by the silhouette of a fox beyond the tails. Everyone except Naruto quaked in fear as the tails finished growing and separated from the body. The 9-tailed fox itself stood before them. There were screams of terror, and people scattered in fear to get away from the monster that had nearly destroyed their home almost 2 decades ago. Kakashi stood there, utterly flabbergasted. He remembered the night of the Kyuubi attack and prayed he would never witness that kind of brutality again. Now, unfortunately, he would be known as the Hokage who let the Kyuubi destroy Konoha. Danzo was still on the ground, but his eye was glued to the tailed beast. All his planning, scheming, dirty tricks, and secret agendas were gone in one moment. His plans for a stronger Konoha vanished as the Kyuubi no Kitsune would destroy his precious village. That's when he made one last-ditch effort to ensure his village's safety. Wait, he shouted, getting Naruto's attention. Orochimaru's hideout is in Oto in a secret cave to the west near a desert. That's where he is. That's where they are, Danzo pleaded. Kakashi wanted to be angry at Danzo, but right now he was too terrified to say anything. The White Fox turned to the Kyuubi and nodded. The Kyuubi did the same and looked ready to attack, but that's when Kakashi's voice was heard again. Naruto. At the sound of his real name, Naruto stopped Kurama and turned back to Kakashi. He removed his fox mask to properly look at the man who was once his sensei. Don't do this. This place, no matter what happened, is still your home. It's still your parents' home. Don't destroy your father's legacy, Naruto. Naruto raised an eyebrow. And who the hell was he then? Where was he when I was being hunted by the people of his village? Where was he when I was kicked out of an orphanage at 3 and had to live on the street? Where was he when I was beaten to death, tortured, burned, stabbed, drowned, poisoned, cut, and even thrown off buildings? Where the hell was he then, Kakashi, and why the hell should I care about him? Because he was Minato Namikaze, the last of his name, husband of the last Uzumaki, Kushina Uzumaki, and the fourth Hokage, Kakashi yelled, hoping this would change Naruto's mind and he would help in the war. Naruto's eyes widened at this information. He looked at the Hokage mountain and saw the fourth looking out at the village. His village. He clenched his fist and gritted his teeth in anger. Now that he knew his father was the very person he hated the most while growing up, his rage was amplified. As a child, it hadn't taken him long to figure out something was wrong when people said he was the reason the fourth died. For a while, he didn't know what they meant until he snuck into a library and read about the fourth sacrifice to stop the Kyuubi. It said he sealed the Kyuubi inside a baby but didn't specify which one. It didn't take Naruto long to figure out it must have been him. He was born the same day as the Kyuubi's defeat, so it made sense. He hated the fourth for burdening him with this and causing the villagers to see him that way. Now, to find out the fourth was his father, that was the final straw. Naruto reined in his anger and looked at Kakashi. Kakashi thought his tactic had worked, and Naruto would want to preserve his legacy. Even Jiraiya, who was on top of a large building watching everything, was hopeful. He would make up for the hardships Naruto went through this time and earn Minato's forgiveness. Naruto took a deep breath, then turned to Kurama. She looked down at him with visible worry in her crimson eyes. She knew of Naruto's hatred for the fourth and now his own father. She hoped her husband wouldn't fall like this and willingly return to the village he vowed never to come back to. That worry turned to surprise, then a vicious glare, when Naruto gestured to the Hokage mountain. Kurama wasted no time, looked at the mountain, and charged her own attack. Naruto no! Kakashi and Jiraiya shouted, but they were too late. The Kyuubi fired a beam of condensed energy directly at the fourth's head. The beam went through and kept going, destroying the fourth's head and everything in its path. It finally stopped, and a massive explosion was visible to the entire village. Everyone screamed, seeing what had happened to the mountain. People were beyond terrified. Damn it no! Jiraiya shouted, summoning Gamabunta. The large toad summon drew its blade the second it saw the Kyuubi. Jiraiya stood on the toad's head, readying himself for a hard battle. Naruto! Don't make me do this. Naruto looked at his other former teacher, smirked, and nodded to Kurama. She nodded back and reverted to her human-like form. Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Danzo, who was in absolute shock from seeing the Kyuubi's power firsthand, looked at the blonde with confused expressions. The rookie 9 and Sakura came back the moment the Kyuubi disappeared and saw Naruto with the same woman. Naruto saw them and showed no reaction as he turned back to Kakashi. This is your only warning, he began in a dark tone that made even Gamabunta visibly sweat drop. After I tear apart Orochimaru, Sasuke, and anyone else who gets in my way, I'm coming back here. He put his mask back on and released an ungodly amount of killing intent on everyone in the village. And I'm gonna burn this village to the ground. With that, Naruto and Kurama left via the red flame Shunshin. The key stopped, and Gamabunta vanished in a puff of smoke. Kakashi, Jiraiya, the rookie 9, and Sakura all felt it. This wasn't the same Naruto from long ago. This Naruto wasn't going to be their savior or their hero. No, he wasn't that anymore. He was their end. It didn't take long for word to spread that the White Fox was going to Oto. The news spread like wildfire when it was revealed that the White Fox somehow had the Kyuubi no Kitsune in his possession. No one in Konoha besides the Hokage, Danzo, Jiraiya, and the rookie 9 plus Sakura knew the truth. The villagers were in a panic, pleading with the Hokage to let them leave and take their chances outside the village. Kakashi had to find a way to calm their fear but knew of none. How could he? How could he reassure the people when he couldn't even get back the one person he had failed most? His sensei would be rolling in his grave at his former student's colossal failure to lure back one person. One precious person to both him and the village. Kakashi knew these were dark days, but with Naruto revealing his wife was the Kyuubi and could transform to her full Baijuyu form, and his vow to burn the village to the ground, it changed these dark days into a simple numbers game. They would either be destroyed by Oto, Kumo, and Aim, or Naruto would return with the Kyuubi and take care of the entire village before any of the three armies had the chance. Kakashi slumped in his chair, knowing this was truly the end of the home his sensei had called his own. The village he swore to protect and serve, no matter the cost, but this was too much even for him. He stood up and wiped a single tear from his eye, his mask off at the moment. The council wanted an emergency meeting to address everything that had happened. Kakashi knew this could only end badly. With Naruto and Kurama, it only took a day to reach the border of Otogakure. They looked at the border patrol with no interest, even as the ninjas circled them. The border guards were Oto ninja, with a few Kumo ninja and only 2 Aim ninja. At the sight of the White Fox, the 2 Aim ninja froze in fear before running back into Otogakure. Smart move, the woman beside the White Fox said, grinning at the remaining ninja. The remaining ninja chose to stay and charged at the two. What an awful strategy. With Boruto and Akira, both the brother and sister had been bound back to back since waking up. They were in a dimly lit cell with just iron bars separating them from the outside. Neither of them seemed hurt or injured in any way, besides being a bit hungry. Boruto was scanning the earthen room for anything that could help them escape. So far, he'd found nothing. "This is lame," he said out loud. "Oniai-san," Akira said in a strained whisper. "You okay, Akira?" Boruto asked, concerned. "My eyes hurt," she replied, closing them to ease the pain. Before Boruto could offer any comfort, Akira winced and her eyes opened. They were a deep purple color with pitch-black pupils. When this happened, her hair started to move violently, swirling around both her and Boruto and shattering the chains that held them. Boruto moved away from his sister as fox ears sprouted from her head. They were a light shade of purple, and her hair began to turn the same color. A long fox tail grew from the base of her spine. It was long enough to wrap around her small body with ease and was the same shade as her new hair. Her whisker marks deepened, and her nails grew to a fearsome length. Chakra swirled around her, a dark red chakra in the form of a burning fox and a calm blue chakra swirling in the opposite direction. The chakras met above her and collided, forming a bright purple energy that was both chaotic and peaceful. The energy dissipated, and Akira fell to her knees. "Akira!" Boruto shouted, rushing to his sister's side and cradling her in his arms. "Akira, are you okay?" he asked, his voice filled with worry. Akira's appearance returned to normal. She fell asleep in her brother's arms, and Boruto let out a sigh of relief, not fully comprehending what he had just witnessed. Just then, the cell door opened, and a few Oto nin entered. They seemed surprised that the two children were no longer chained, though their cloth masks hid their expressions. "How in the hell did you two break free?" one of the guards asked impatiently. Boruto thought quickly, then waved his hand in a silly manner. "Magic?" The Oto nin were not amused and moved to grab them both, but they all heard an explosion and screaming. The Oto nin were distracted by the commotion, giving Boruto the perfect opportunity to demonstrate why he was so hard to catch. Scooping up his still asleep sister, Boruto slipped past the ninjas and out of the cell. "Hey!" one of the nin shouted as Boruto slid between his legs to escape. "Capture them before Orochimaru-sama or Suzuki-sama finds out. Don't wait up, losers!" Boruto yelled as he navigated the underground base, avoiding any and all Oto, Kumo, and AIM nin in his path. "Orochimaru, Suzuki, and Kabuto. What is going on out there?" Kabuto yelled to one of the Oto nin monitoring the perimeter. I don't know. One moment we're getting two intruders near the border, the next we have reports of some monster by the AIM nin," a terrified Oto nin answered. "TCH. Kabuto grunted, turning to his master. "Orochimaru-sama, what do you want us to do?" Orochimaru stroked his chin, slightly annoyed. He had anticipated Naruto would come here recklessly and get caught, but something was different. Perhaps the snake he sent to spy on Danzo forgot to mention something in its report. Who knows for now? "Suzuki-kun," the snake Sunin said to his future vessel. "It seems your former teammate has arrived. Why don't you greet him properly this time?" Suzuki smirked and disappeared in a shunshin. Orochimaru grinned, looking at the spot where the boy had been. He was completely unaware of the white fox or the Kyubai's presence, or the escape of his little insurance policy. Back with Boruto and Akira, things seemed to have calmed down for the siblings. They had avoided the Oto and Kumo nin, but Boruto had heard the AIM nin panic at the sight of, as they called it, the devil himself. Boruto had no idea what that meant, but he knew he had to get Akira out of here fast. Boruto slipped through several corridors with Akira still unconscious on his back. He had no idea where he was or where to go, but he had to find a way out of this place quickly. He rounded a few more corners and ran into a man with raven-black hair and strange red eyes. The man looked down at Boruto and smirked. "So, the Dobe's little brats escaped, I see," he started as the Tomo and his eyes began to spin. Suddenly, Boruto started to feel lightheaded before passing out. "This will work to my advantage once he gets here." He lifted Boruto by the collar of his shirt and roughly slung Akira onto his shoulder. "I'll deal with this white fox before I kill Naruto," he said to himself, continuing on his way to what he didn't know was his inevitable doom. Naruto and Kurama didn't take them long to break into the underground fortress. It was just incredibly tedious, having to face weak ninja after weak ninja. They wanted to find Boruto and Akira and destroy this entire place, along with Orochimaru and Suzuki. And why stop there? Otogakure had been nothing but trouble for as long as Naruto had known about it, and Kurama felt the same way. Why not just wipe out all of Otogakure along with Orochimaru? Eradicate the potential for problems altogether and make it so that everyone knows one sole truth in the world: don't mess with the white fox. Plain and simple. It didn't take long for Kurama to feel something. It was faint, but for a split second, it reached a power level similar to a two-tailed beast. That's when she knew one of their children had just unlocked their Baijuyu chakra. With this new information, both Naruto and Kurama ran toward the faint energy source. They rounded several long corridors before entering a large, open room big enough for an army. That's when they saw him. Suzuki, standing there, with Boruto on the ground and Akira held by the back of her neck. They saw so much red, but knew they couldn't release their full killing intent, or they would hurt Boruto and Akira. Well, Suzuki began with a cocky smirk. I see the Dobe's wife here, but I don't see him. That's when Suzuki figured it out and started to chuckle under his breath before bursting into full-blown laughter. His laughter angered the two but woke Akira from her sleep. She opened her eyes and saw her mother standing across from her, along with a man in a white fox mask. She immediately perked up and looked around to see a crazed man holding her by the neck and her brother lying on the floor. Unii-san, Akira yelled, trying to break free from the man's iron grip. She looked to her mother with pleading eyes. Oka-san. It's okay, sweetie, Kurama said in a kind, motherly tone. Oka-san and Toyu-san are here now. Don't worry about a thing, my little fox. Suzuki simply smirked at the words, confirming what he had just figured out. So, he started as he lifted Akira by her neck while she struggled. The dope became the so-called infamous white fox, and had a few little brats since I defeated you all those years ago. Why don't you show your face to me before I kill your precious little fox? Naruto gritted his teeth as he took off his mask. He stared daggers at the Uchiha and struggled to hold back his attack for fear of hitting Akira. Speaking of Akira, she was a little surprised to see her father was the white fox, but at the same time she was happy. She knew that he could and would save her, no doubt about it. Toyu-san, Akira said with a smile. Naruto smiled at her. It's okay, Akira. Daddy's here. Suzuki smirked, silently preparing a chidori. He wanted Naruto to witness true pain and loss before the fight began. This would be so satisfying for him to finally get revenge on his once teammate and rival, now bitter, hated enemy. Just as Naruto was about to make his move, Suzuki did it. He plunged his chidori into Akira's back and listened to her cries of pain. Naruto and Kurama's eyes widened in absolute shock at what they were seeing. Akira, they both shouted as Suzuki dropped her the moment the little girl went limp. He threw her toward them, and as quickly as they could, Kurama caught her. They were horrified at the massive hole in her back, and Suzuki began to laugh maniacally. Before any tears could be shed, however, Kurama felt the Baijuyu chakra rushing to her daughter's wound. How does it feel, Dobe? Suzuki barked, assuming he had one. Naruto, Kurama whispered to her husband, motioning to the now healing wound. How does it feel to lose someone close to you and there's not a damn thing you can do about it? Suzuki continued, this time waking up Boruto. The boy looked over and saw his mother and father, and he rushed over to them. Suzuki didn't bother to stop, likely due to his ego. Akira! Boruto yelled, kneeling down to see his sister healing with that weird purple chakra. Hey, that's the same chakra from before. Before? Naruto asked his son, ignoring Suzuki's laughs and boasts. Suzuki apparently couldn't see that Akira was healing herself. Yeah, while we were tied up, she said her eyes were hurting, then she just freaked out on me. Boruto explained. Her Baijuyu energy, Kurama started, getting Naruto's attention. Akira's Baijuyu energy must have been activated during that time of great stress, meaning she has a tailed beast inside her. Naruto finished his wife's statement. Yes, Kurama answered with a nod and a smile. She's going to be okay. Take care of your old teammate, Naruto. And this time, wreak havoc. Naruto smiled at her and nodded before turning to his son. Boruto, stay with your mother and sister. He stood up and turned to Suzuki, his sword drawn. I'll end this, in an instant. Naruto looked directly at Suzuki with a sinister look in his eyes, a look Suzuki didn't think Naruto was capable of. The blonde gave the last Uchiha a devilish smirk, one that sent a shiver down Suzuki's spine. Naruto stretched a few times before slowly and methodically walking toward the now fearful Suzuki. The Uchiha, in turn, assumed this was just grief and anger from his old rival killing his daughter. Unfortunately for him, Naruto was more thrilled than angry. This would be the last time the two would fight. The last time the Uchiha would be seen by anyone. The last time he would draw a breath. Without wasting any time, Naruto drew his sword and continued to walk toward Suzuki. Suzuki drew his blade and took his stance, his sly smirk a perfect representation of his ego. Naruto didn't even bother to raise his blade to block as Suzuki lunged at him, swinging his sword with ferocity and power. Naruto simply dodged with ease, a look of boredom on his face. After all this time since their last, near-fatal battle, this was all Suzuki could do. It was beyond pathetic, downright sad in Naruto's opinion. Suzuki was getting frustrated and decided to step it up. His blade was covered in lightning, and he started to move faster. To anyone else, it would look like a blur, but to Naruto, it looked like Suzuki had gone from the speed of an old man to the speed of a child swinging a stick. Pathetic. Naruto almost pitied him as he continued to lazily dodge all of Suzuki's strikes. Suzuki took a step back when he saw Naruto take a step forward, landing on the other side of the room. He was utterly confused as to how the Dobe had obtained such power. He deserved this power and would do anything to get it. He activated his Sharingan and took a stance, only to realize Naruto was gone. He looked around before a fist connected with the left side of his jaw, sending him flying to the other end of the room. Sasuke caught himself midair but was met with a knee to the chin, sending him skyward for a moment. Sasuke tried and failed to catch himself as Naruto appeared in front of him and kicked him back down to the ground with enough force to leave a large crater. Naruto dropped down with his sword pointed downward to finish off the Uchiha, only to be met by his second curse-mark form. Naruto dodged Sasuke's attacks and had to block the even more ferocious strikes the Uchiha was giving him. This was a little more interesting to Naruto but not by much. He hadn't been this bored in a fight since he slaughtered those AIM nin during the war. Sasuke could still tell that Naruto was holding back, if not just mildly interested in this fight. He would have to use his entire arsenal of tricks to defeat the blonde, and that would start with what defeated him just a few days ago. He activated his genjutsu, expecting it to incapacitate Naruto once again, only this time, Naruto smirked at his foolish attempt. He raised his blade towards Sasuke, and the Uchiha saw the glowing red blade, and the blood-red eyes glowing and moving. My blade and the demon within it aren't very impressed with your genjutsu skills, Sasuke. Naruto started as he walked toward the stunned Uchiha. A Kayakuma is a demonic blade that feeds off negative energy and blood. Your negative energy, your anger, doubt, frustration, fear is doing a very fine job of feeding him. Now it's time he feeds on fresh Uchiha blood. Before Sasuke could retort, Naruto had disappeared at speeds even the Sharingan couldn't track. He looked around for a moment before feeling a very sharp and sudden pain in his back. He looked behind him and saw that his two hand wings had been sliced clean off. Blood was flowing from his wound and covering the ground. He yelled in pain, only to feel his entire right arm severed from his body. The fresh blood fell to the ground, and he had no time to prepare for what came next. Naruto stood in front of his kneeling, bleeding form and decided to add insult to injury. With one quick movement, Naruto tore out Sasuke's precious eyes and held them in his hand. Sasuke screamed in pain before collapsing, clutching the empty sockets. The pain in his back and arms was nothing compared to the agony he was feeling now. It was so unbearable that he passed out. Naruto held the eyes in his hand, a grin forming as he considered an idea for later. He sealed the eyes in a scroll and put it in his pocket. He looked down at Sasuke's unconscious form and smirked. Now you'll see the world just as I did as a child. Darkness and despair, but don't worry, Sasuke. You won't be feeling anything later, not after I'm done with your master. Naruto walked over to his family, a warm smile on his face, and chuckled at his son's dropped jaw. He then looked down at Akira, who was beginning to stir. A new voice rang out from behind them. Naruto turned to see the snake himself standing near the downed Sasuke, a smirk on his face. I had such high hopes for you, Sasuke, but oh well. I suppose I'll have to find a new vessel, and one of those children should work well. I've been waiting a long time for this, Orochimaru, Kurama said as she stood up while Naruto took Akira. Oh, Orochimaru raised an eyebrow at the woman. And who might you be, if I may ask? Kurama decided to show rather than tell, and the look on the snake's face was priceless once she revealed her large red tails. Orochimaru backed away, realizing too late that he had made a grave mistake. He hadn't just angered Naruto and some random woman. He had angered Naruto and the Kyuubi no Kitsune. Before he could retreat, he felt a sharp pain as Kurama's tail pierced his chest. He coughed up blood and looked into her crimson eyes as she whispered, "You will feel the very fires of hell engulf your entire being for committing the ultimate sin against any mother." She continued even as Orochimaru began to pass out from blood loss. "You, the bastard Uchiha, and all of Oto will burn until even the ash disappears, but you too will burn in the one place you deserve to be. That, I can guarantee." With those words, Kurama dropped the snake and sealed both him and the Uchiha in a large scroll for what they were about to do next. She returned to her family just as Naruto was picking up a waking Akira. She laid her hand on Boruto's shoulder and leaned into Naruto as they shunshined away from the area just as Kabuto and the rest of Oto's forces arrived. All the AIM nin pulled out in fear of the White Fox's arrival. The Kyuubi nin also arrived with the bulk of their army, ready to face the White Fox. The four arrived on a hill overlooking all of Otogakure. Naruto looked at Kurama, and with a smile that was warm to his children but meant something completely different to her, he nodded. He took the kids and shunshined away from her so she could do what she was about to do. Kurama transformed into her full-tailed beast form, and with a mighty roar, she formed the largest Biju bomb ever. She looked down for a moment and could faintly hear the cries and panicked wails of the people within Otogakure. She felt no remorse as she fired the Biju bomb toward the center of Otogakure. The explosion was massive, covering the entire area, and in one swift motion, there was silence. No more cries or fearful people, just silence as the fire spread and engulfed the entire area. Kurama felt nothing toward them. Their leader was responsible for this, not her. If it weren't for Orochimaru, none of this would have happened to the innocent. None of it to the ones just following orders. None of it to the mothers and fathers as they clutched their children when oblivion swept across them. Karama felt nothing, knowing her husband didn't either. She changed back into her human form and shined away to be with her family. When she arrived, she was greeted by two balls of joy rushing her and embracing her in a tight hug. She hugged them back as they were now in front of their home. She looked at Naruto and nodded just outside their children's view. He nodded back, knowing there was only one thing left to do now: burn Konoha to the ground. It didn't take long for word to reach all around the elemental nations of what happened to Oto. News of the White Fox and his partner, the Kyuubi no Kitsune, destroying the entire area shocked and terrified everyone, all except for Kusa, who still saw him as a true hero. The bingo book was updated for the White Fox from an SS rank ninja to the only SSS rank ninja with a run-on-site description, the first in the book's history. All throughout the nations, the cages were preparing for an attack out of both paranoia and fear of being in the same state as Otogakure. Konoha wasn't faring well though. Only the Rookie 9, Sakura, their Jounin senseis, Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Danzo knew what he was going to do next. And if Sasuke, all of Oto, Kumo, and Aim, and Orochimaru couldn't stop him when they were at their strongest, then what chance did Konoha have right now? They all knew that Naruto was a man of his word and that he would come back here, ready to burn it to the ground. The only question was, what to do now? Danzo was convicted of treason for supplying information to Orochimaru and his forces, so that was one problem taken care of. Jiraiya and Kakashi had been working tirelessly on a way to stop Naruto when he arrived with seals, like how the fourth defeated the fox the first time. The Jounin senseis were preparing as best as they could while also trying and failing to convince their former students to join them. The Rookie 9 plus Sakura had all but given up. After hearing Naruto's promise to burn the entire village to the ground, coupled with the fact that he still believed they attended that celebration of his banishment all those years ago, the will to fight was completely gone from them all. For Sakura, she had lost both her teammates and friends, and there was nothing she could do about it. Hinata had lost the love of her life and saw that he had a family, the one dream she fought for only to have it ripped from her. Shikamaru and Koji felt as if the only thing to do now was just spend as much time together watching the clouds. Kiba and Akamaru just stayed with their family, hoping it would be quick. Ino had spent her time with Sakura because she didn't want to be alone. Tenten and Niji stayed together and promised to meet each other in the afterlife. Shino was at peace with what he knew would happen and awaited the end. Lee merely meditated, focused on how to be better if he reincarnated. The night after the news of Oto's destruction, they all met at Training Ground 7-1 last time. It wasn't to plan an attack or even get ready to face Naruto, it was just to say goodbye. "I'm really gonna miss all of you," Ino said with a tear in her eye. "Yeah, me too," Shikamaru spoke up. "At least when this is all over, it won't ever be troublesome again." "Ain't that the truth," Kiba said with a smirk, his first in a few days. "I just hope that when Naruto does show up, he'll at least make it quick for us. Not like we really deserve it." Tenten spoke with her head down. Niji held her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "We'll be together for it. I promise," he said to her, looking into the eyes of the girl he loved. "Wow. And here I thought a guy like Niji didn't actually love anyone." A new yet familiar voice broke their thoughts. They all turned in the direction of the voice and saw, to their surprise and near horror, Naruto Uzumaki, standing with his wife next to him. "Hey guys. Been a while, hasn't it?" To say that they were all tense was an understatement. They were terrified as to why he was here in front of them. Thanks to Shikamaru, he had already deduced that the woman was indeed the Kyuubi in a sort of human form, a thought that made them even more fearful. They all took a step back as Naruto tilted his head and raised an eyebrow. "You all seem defensive for some reason," he started. "You all can calm down. If I wanted all of you dead, I would have just done it by now." This had a small effect, as most of them relaxed a bit but were still shaken and tense. "I only came here because I wanted to warn all of you to leave Konoha before noon tomorrow." They all went wide-eyed at what he said, and a whirlwind of questions were asked or shouted. Naruto didn't bother to answer the meaningless ones and instead answered the one that was asked the most. "Why? Why them? I'm telling all of you not out of friendship or anything of the sort, but because my wife convinced me to," Naruto said to them, while Kurama stood next to him. "She convinced me that not everyone in this village deserves what's coming to them." They all tensed at his words, but something wasn't right. Why was he warning them now of all times? Why give them this in advance if he wasn't doing it as a friend? They had so many questions, but Naruto was in no mood to answer them. He turned around to walk away with Kurama, only to be stopped by a certain lavender-haired girl. "Naruto-kun." "Wait," Hinata spoke up, going over to the now stopped Naruto. Kurama knew what was about to happen. Unlike Naruto in his younger years, she had picked up on the Hyuga girl's crush on her blonde vessel. She knew that this girl simply couldn't live without her precious Naruto-kun. Her dream was most likely to be with him and marry him, only for that dream to be absolutely shattered into a million pieces by Kurama. The Kyuubi no Kitsune took Hinata's dream away from her, and the girl would do anything to get it back. Anything. Hinata and Naruto spoke before turning to the still girl. He looked at her with a stern yet soft look in his eyes that she didn't recognize as the monster or demon everyone had always called him. He looked like a man who was about to say something she didn't want to hear. Taking a deep breath, Naruto spoke to her. "I'm sorry, Hinata. But we can't. I can't be with you. My heart belongs to Kurama, my wife, my love." He held out his hand to the demoness, and she took it. "I'm sorry, but this is who my heart belongs to. Her and my children are the most important things in my life. Goodbye, Hinata." "BB but, NNN Naruto," she stuttered as tears streamed down her face. "ILL love you. I know," he started, "but I can't return that love the way you want me to. This is all I can give you. Go and live. For me." Before any of them could say anything, Naruto and Kurama were gone in a red flame Shunshin, leaving a sobbing Hinata and an equally distraught group behind her. The next day, 11:50. Kakashi was sitting in his chair inside his home and looked out his window at the rest of the village. After word got out about Oto, he knew that Konoha's days were truly numbered, not by an army or some powerful alliance, but by a single individual. An individual that Kakashi himself had tried and failed to help all those years ago. An individual that had every right to want Konoha to be the exact same crater-sized hole as Otogakure. Naruto Uzumaki. He was coming back here, and he was going to do what he promised. Burn Konoha to the ground. Kakashi knew he was a man of his word and that this was indeed the end. Especially after he got a letter from someone in an obvious henge telling him that at noon tomorrow, the village would be no more. Of course, Kakashi brought this to the council and got the response he knew would happen. Panic, outrage, a desire to bolster the Leaf's defenses, calls for assistance at anything. That, of course, was the civilian side and elders, while the shinobi side wanted to evacuate the village and save as many people as possible. Enraged by the lack of integrity, Danzo, who had pulled many strings and favors to be released, seized the opportunity to take the Hokage position from the former Jounin. A task that proved too easy when Kakashi practically threw the hat toward the old man and stepped down, not just from the Hokage position, but also as a shinobi in general. He left the chamber after convincing most of the clan heads that this was something they weren't going to win. The original Inoshikacho stepped down as well, along with Suminyazuka and Shivi Abarame. Of course, Hayashi wasn't going to let one little demon brat and his apparent whore of a wife intimidate him, so he stayed to reap the rewards of Naruto's defeat. Danzo would have marked them as missing nin, but he had preparations to make and a blonde weapon to leash in the morning. Jiraiya had tried and failed to convince them to stay and fight for their home, but they all felt the same guilt about what was coming and decided to cut their losses. Now, Kakashi stood at his door, ready to leave, and looked at the clock. 11:53, 7 minutes left. He took one last look at the room he had called home for so long and saw the picture of him and Team 7. This caused him to shed a tear as he took off his headband and placed it near the picture. Grabbing a dark blue bandana, he tied it to cover his Sharingan eye and left in civilian clothes for the north gate. Waiting for him there were Sakura, all of the Rookie 9, their Jounin senseis and parents, the clan heads and those with them who saw reason over a false sense of victory, the Konoha Corps, Irika, and the Ichirakus. They left with only 2 minutes left until the end, with a myriad of emotions, sorrow, shame, anger, fear, hope, all of these and more as they moved farther and farther away from Konoha. 30 seconds left. Naruto and Kurama made their way to the front gates of Konoha, where they were met with several Umbu, Root, and shinobi of all kinds, even Jiraiya. They stared lazily at them all while each carried a scroll in their hands. Naruto Uzumaki. Danzo started in an authoritative tone. "You have made a grave mistake, brat. 25 seconds left. You come to destroy the Leaf Village, but it is you who shall be destroyed and tamed as Konoha's ultimate weapon. 15 seconds. It is over, you demon. All you will be useful for is being our weapon and showing our enemies that the infamous White Fox bends to our rule. 10 seconds. The shinobi were getting ready. 9 seconds. Jiraiya was preparing the seal he had painstakingly made to stop both Naruto and the Kyuubi. 8 seconds. Root Umbu were prepared to sacrifice themselves for Danzo-sama's rule. 7 seconds. The civilians hid in their homes, but they knew their village was strong enough to take anything. 6 seconds. Naruto and Kurama unfurled their respective scrolls and unsealed them. 5 seconds. Everyone looked on in shock at the barely alive Snake Sunin and their precious Uchiha. 4 seconds. Both Kurama and Naruto flung the two past the forces in front of them and into the road for everyone to see. Naruto put on his mask and smirked at the shocked and horrified faces of the people who were now starting to emerge to see the bodies. 2. Kurama began to laugh at them all. 1. Danzo turned to face the two, feeling as if he was staring death straight in the eyes. 0. And that was when all hell broke loose as explosions rocked the very foundation of the Leaf. First, the Academy and Hokage Tower were set ablaze, followed by various other areas around the village. Next, the Hokage Mountain exploded as each head burst, releasing a black liquid that oozed down and covered the entire village in seconds. Danzo looked on in horror as he and everyone else realized something about this liquid too late. it was highly flammable. The next explosion was a massive one that came from both Orochimaru and Sasuke, who had explosives planted throughout their clothing. They exploded in a fiery and gory mess that ignited the substance, and the fire spread like wildfire, along with the panic and screaming as the entire village was consumed by the red flames. It got worse when Kurama transformed into her fox form and fired a Baijuyu bomb directly into the center of the village, turning the entire place into a black and red hellscape. Just as Danzo and the remaining forces were about to retaliate against Naruto, the gates suddenly closed on them. All of the gates, trapping them in the growing inferno. People clawed and begged at the gates, praying to whatever kami they worshipped to come and save them. But the only thing heard was the screams from every single person in the village. Men, women, children, everyone. No one was safe from the fire, and nothing could put it out. Water did nothing. Earth crumbled before the flames. Wind only made the fire surge higher. Even the toad Gamabunta was no match for the flames, as he was quickly consumed and disappeared with a loud poof. Naruto and Kurama, now back in her human form, watched the smoke and flames stretch up the walls of Konoha's gate. They listened to the screams as they grew fainter by the minute. They didn't even bother to stay, as they knew the demonic fire would not stop until all life within the walls of Konoha was gone. They walked away from the still burning village hand in hand and sunshine back to their home, to be with their children now that the nightmare of Konoha was finally over. It had been 10 years since what happened in Konoha had been spread throughout the elemental nations. 10 years of a strange peace among the nations after the gruesome details of the Leaf's demise at the hands of the now greatly feared and respected White Fox. Many villages and countries sought out the mysterious shinobi for various reasons. Kumo, or what was left of its forces after what happened in Oto, sought revenge but faced near annihilation and the death of their Raikage A. After his death, Killer Bee realized that there was truly no way to stop this Mana Euro or demon, if you asked Amiya Euro, and surrendered. The same with all of Kumo. They openly surrendered to the White Fox and pledged loyalty to him to avoid complete and total annihilation. Naruto decided to accept their offer and appointed Bee as the new Raikage, who only answered to him. Yujito also answered to him and helped Bee keep Kumo in the White Fox's good graces. Kusa sought an answer for why he did what he did. True, they saw him as their own hero, but they still wanted to know the truth. Seeing no ill will from them, Naruto removed his mask and told them everything as himself, and to say they were shocked was an understatement. After much thought, all of Kusa still saw their savior as a hero who not only defeated AIM but also wiped out all of Oto and Konoha within a week. AIM was completely fear-stricken by the White Fox and prayed that they would not get his attention in any way. They lost almost half of their forces when he wiped Otogakure off the map and then heard of what he did to Konoha less than a week later. They cut off all trade to any places aligned with their own personal version of the devil himself and prayed that he would leave them alone. Even Konan and Pain, who still had no idea who the White Fox was at that time, were hesitant about his presence. Speaking of Pain and Konan, after the destruction of both Oto and Konoha, the Akatsuki had started to make their move against the demon containers. They had kept silent since the location of Naruto Uzumaki was lost to everyone when he was banished all those years ago. With the destruction of Konoha, they all started to put the pieces together and figured out that the White Fox might know where the Kyuubi container was. All the members of the Akatsuki went in search of the White Fox and found him heading to Uegakure for some reason or another. When they confronted him demanding that he tell them the location of the Kyuubi container, Naruto removed his mask to show them his true face. To say that they were all shocked that a former Konoha ninja wiped out all of Oto and Konoha itself was a definite shock to them all. They all engaged him, and one by one, Naruto defeated them all. He killed Haiden and Kakuzu with ease, shattered Samehada with a Kayakuma and sliced Kisame in half, shattered Sasori and the Six Paths into pieces, subdued Zetsu and later destroyed him, captured Deidara since they were so close to Uegakure right now, defeated both the real Pain and Konan, the same with Itachi, and he subdued Tobi after the man tried and failed to use his Sharingan to manipulate the blonde. Naruto had listened to Pain and his reasoning for wanting to do what the Akatsuki were planning to do. He didn't like the idea, not one bit. Seeing as how he took out most of the members, Naruto decided to spare the last three while taking Tobi's head. It came as a real shock to Itachi when he realized that Tobi was really a formerly dead Uchiha named Obito. Naruto's reasoning for killing him was to send him straight to his now fully fallen team to grieve at what he had lost. The last three were confused as to why he would allow them to go free. That is until Naruto told them he wanted them to stop their own foolish dreams. Pain and Konan to stop their foolish dream of bringing peace and for Itachi to realize that he was the true, last Uchiha and his village was nothing but ashes. Naruto left them with Deidara and went to IWA to allow them to think about what they were to do now. In IWA, after Naruto defeated the Akatsuki, he donned his mask again and went into IWA with an unconscious and subdued Deidara in tow. Oniki and Kurotsuki, along with many high-level IWA nin, surrounded the White Fox until they saw that he had a missing nin of theirs. They relaxed when he told them he only wished for an alliance and that Deidara was just a show of good faith. Oniki was skeptical in his old age while Kurotsuki was amazed by the power that the White Fox possessed. Everyone was hesitant until Naruto took off his mask to show his real face. Everyone tensed and cursed when they saw his face and recognized him as their greatest enemy ever, until Naruto introduced himself to them, denouncing his father's name, even stating that his father's actions were the main reason why he burned Konoha to the ground in the first place. They were hesitant at first but later decided that this man in front of them would bring their village to even greater heights. Naruto later went to Suna and revealed himself as the White Fox to his friend Gaara. After explaining everything to the container of the one-tailed tanuki, Gaara was easily convinced to ally Suna with Naruto. Wave was next on Naruto's list. He was greeted by the people of Wave with open arms and friendly celebrations. He had offered an alliance with them as well as getting the location of Uzushiagakur from Tajuna. He went to the ruins of his mother's homeland and found many things that only he could access because of his heritage. He found out about seals and that some of the village was actually sealed away and hidden underground for safety. Naruto brought those buildings back to the light and was surprised to see that a library and storage building full of clan techniques and the history of the once great Uzumaki clan. Naruto found many things on his people and even found a note from his mother Kushina. It was a letter to the first container of Kurama, Mito Uzumaki, explaining that she was afraid of going to Konoha, that she was hesitant about living with Minato and leaving Uzu to fend off their enemies without her help, and that she was fearful about what would happen if she had a child and had no choice but to transfer the Kyuubi into her/him. Naruto shed a tear at reading the letter and decided to make a true memorial stone for the fallen Uzumaki clan. He later, with the help of the people of Wave, rebuilt Uzu. It didn't take much to convince his family to come to the former home of the Uzumaki clan. After Naruto had successfully restored Uzushiagakure, word had spread about it all. Many loyal Uchiha warriors had returned to see if the rumors were indeed true or not. They were pleasantly surprised to see that it was and that an Uzumaki had restored it. They instantly saw Naruto as their leader and even wanted to make him the Uzukage of the village. Naruto refused the offer at first, stating that he only wanted to live his days with his family and among his homeland, but after some convincing from his family, he accepted the position. Everyone from the small village in Earth Country migrated to their savior and moved into Uzu, causing a massive boom in the population. It was good for both Boruto and Akira to see some familiar faces after what had happened to them in Oto. Speaking of Akira and Boruto, both Kurama, Naruto, and even a few of the ninja who were loyal to the Uzumaki clan had started to train them and many others at the newly built Uzu Ninja Academy. Many children were learning about the ways of a ninja, the history of the ninja, and many techniques as well such as Fuinjutsu. True, none of the kids were at the level both Boruto and Akira were at since they were actual Uzumakis with a natural understanding of Fuinjutsu, but that didn't mean everyone else was slacking off either. The two had grown since Oto. Akira had learned that her Baijuyu was a small, three-tailed and purple fox with pure white eyes. This Baijuyu was still growing inside of her as the years went on and now has 5 tails as of right now. Akira could feel the power of her Baijuyu, which was named Yuki because of her eyes, every time she would call for it. Yuki was surprisingly docile and kind to her container and was most helpful in teaching her many things outside of the academy. Not to be outdone by his sister, Boruto had stepped up in his training. He was still the knucklehead and quick-wit kid he always was, but he was one of the top ninja within the academy. He learned many things, including Kenjutsu from his teachers and father, Fuinjutsu from the family storage vault since he took a very keen interest in the art of sealing, and surprisingly enough Genjutsu from his mother. He became one of the best seal masters in Uzu in such a short amount of time that it came as no surprise that he would reach Chunin easily along with his sister. And just think of the horrible way he and Akira would have been treated if Naruto had went back to Konoha. The remaining remnants of Konoha that Naruto spared were doing well now for the most part. The Ichirakus had set up shop within Kusa and were welcomed by many when they informed the people that they were among the ones loyal to Naruto. They were given permission to live in Kusa and continue serving their famous ramen to the people. The original Inoshikacho were among the few that retired from the shinobi life, along with Shiki Abarame, Asuma and his wife Kurane who now had a son, and surprisingly enough Guy since his eternal rival had done so before the destruction of Konoha. They had decided to live their lives in peace and were in various areas around the elemental nation. Asuma and Kurane along with their son had moved to the land of spring along with the Konohamaru Corp, who later became bodyguards for the daimyo herself. The original Inoshikacho and their wives had stayed together with what's left of their clan and went to North Water Country. Shiki Abarame and his clan along with Shino decided to head to Tanagakur and rebuild there. Irika had decided to try his hand at being an instructor at Suna. He was welcomed there in good graces since he was also one of Naruto's precious people. Guy and Kakashi had decided to open up a taijutsu school out in a small village not too far from Takigakur. It's a good thing that Kakashi dropped the mask, wore a bandana around his Sharingan, and changed his hair color to black to draw in less attention. Guy changed his wardrobe but still went on about youth. The last of the Konoha 12 stayed ninja to better themselves not just as ninjas but as people. Sakura had found her old sensei Tsunade along with Shizune out in Shimogakure where she convinced the broken woman to help the people with medicine. Sakura is now a full-time medic that only does ninja work on the side as she helps wherever she is. The current Inoshikacho trio had stayed together as well as become ninjas in Kumo under Killer Bee. They have become a very powerful team for the still broken village and have been steadily building up a reputation for voluntarily doing grunt work to fix the problems of the village. Lee, after leaving Gai-sensei on good terms, traveled to Kirigakure to work hard to live up to the new chance at life Naruto had given him. Niji and Tenten had stayed together and moved out to the village of Yugakure to raise their own children while also teaching at the academy there. Kiba had stuck with his clan and they all became travelers seeking out a refuge to the west that used to house their clan long ago. From what most people can say, the Inyazuka clan was rebuilding and thriving in the chaos of the west. It took a long while for Hinata to see that her crush, her love, her dream was now taken away from her, never to be reached again. After a few months of grieving, Hinata decided to honor Naruto's last words in living her life for him. She stayed with the Hyuga clan, and they all left for South Water Country. It was a good way to restart their lives, and even with the death of their father, Hinata and Hanabi mourned the man he was and then started to rebuild the Hyuga clan to the greatness it once was. The last 3 members of the Akatsuki had gone their separate ways, well, Itachi did at least. The true last Uchiha had decided to do things for himself and for the future of his clan to survive. He moved around until he stumbled upon the reconstruction of Uzushiagakure. There, he found Naruto once again and pledged his loyalty to the Uzukage on the spot, nearly begging him for his forgiveness. Naruto accepted this but warned Itachi that the path to true redemption would be a hard and grueling one. Itachi took heed of those words and hasn't regretted his decision ever since. Konan and Pain had left AIM with the sickly Nagato and just traveled around the elemental nation, helping people anytime they could and starting over like they were told. Nagato held no resentment toward Naruto or the blonde's actions regarding his plans for peace, but he regretted never truly thanking the man for giving him this second chance. The 3 would continue to travel together for the remainder of their days. Currently, Naruto sat at his desk in the Uzukage's office, sifting through a stack of paperwork. The village had been thriving with the various alliances and trade partnerships they had formed. Word had gotten out that Uzu was back, and many people were coming to them with requests for missions, one after the other, which meant they were financially stable as well. Naruto finished stamping the last document and leaned back in his chair with a sigh. Finally done, he said to himself, looking out at his mother's village. You would have been so proud, Mom. I know you would. Before he could call it a day, 2 jounin and a tall purple fox with 6 tails appeared in the office via Shunshin. Boruto, who had grown taller and was wearing a standard Uzu headband along with his classic black cargo pants and an orange coat over a black shirt, and Akira, wearing an orange and red battle kimono with the Uzumaki swirl on the back, stood before their father. Hey, Oto-san, Boruto said while Akira smiled at her brother's antics. We just came to tell you that Mom's making dinner and wanted us to remind you it's your favorite. Naruto's eyes lit up at the thought of that ramen, and he quickly stood up. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go, he said in an excited tone that caused his kids and the tall fox Baijuyu to laugh at him. They all exited through the front door, leaving the office behind. It was a beautiful day in the village, but inside Naruto's office, hanging on the wall adjacent to the window overlooking the village, was the one thing that had caused all this change. The one thing that will exist as long as ninja exist and evil shows up once more to disrupt the peace. And that thing was the mask of the white fox. Its legacy and bloody reputation will be both remembered and feared no matter how much time has passed. The white fox shall always be remembered.